you again.
Okay, we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the ordinary meeting of Orange City Council, the 2nd of November 2021. And thank you very, very much to Optec Limited and Andy McDougall who made the premises available for tonight's meeting. The room that we're in tonight has a lot of incredible historical significance to Orange because last part of council meetings, which was is exact room. Quite appropriate, being our 75th year since Australia became a city, and 175 years since Orange was declared not a municipality, the village of Orange, formerly was Blackman Swamp. It's quite appropriate that we're meeting here tonight. So I'd like to thank Andrew McDougall, the CEO of Optec, and all their staff who put this together after 3 attempts. I think we've had 3 attempts with COVID and restrictions and all things. Thank you very, very much. Before we start, I think it's an incredible room. Thank you very much for the decor and the flowers, which all came from Pro Patrick, and the time and effort that's gone in putting this together for us. I think it's something that down the track with your children, grandchildren, that you will be able to remember. So once again, thank you, Andrew, and Councillor Whitman as the Chair of Optec for hosting us here this evening. Just a reminder, this meeting has been live streamed and recorded. Please be patient. Technical things can happen. And please do not speak over others. First of all, I'll call for apologies for absence from the Chief Executive Officer.
We have an apology from Councillor Glenn Taylor.
Someone move it. Second. Councillor Whitman, second. Councillor Newton, all in favour? Thank you very much. This council meeting has been live streamed and recorded. By speaking at the council meeting, we agree to live stream and record. Ensure that if and when you speak at this council meeting, that you ensure you are respectful to others and use appropriate language at all times. Orange City Council accepts no liability for any defamatory or offensive remarks or gestures made during the course of this council meeting, and a recording will be made for administrative purposes. There are no prayers for the opening of this meeting. I would like to acknowledge the Wiradjuri people who are the traditional custodians of the land. I'd also like to pay respect to the elders past and present of the Wiradjuri Nation and extend that respect to other Aboriginal Australians who are present. And note, very importantly, the week started on Monday of this week here in Orange, and the week of celebrations is currently being undertaken this week. Does any councillor wish to declare any conflicts of interest in any matter for consideration of the council meeting? No. Now, the council meeting will now adjourn for the conduct of the open forum. And first of all, we have Fiona Towns and PDC agenda item 2.2 DA 242/2021 (brackets 1 98 Gordon Street). On Zoom.
Well, Fiona Towns. Yep.
Hi, I'm Fiona Towns, and I have a concern with that application for 98 Dalton Street. I'll just read a paragraph in the letter that we sent regarding this, readdressing the concerns we raised with Orange Council back in 2015 about the undefined boundaries between 100 Dalton Street and 98 Dalton Street. We asked for confirmation and clarification of those boundaries. Unfortunately, these issues were not addressed at the time and remain a concern. Excuse me. So the story with these properties were these 2 houses were built in 1919, and the condition that these 2 houses were built was that they had rear yard access. There was no driveways. Both houses didn't have a driveway, and the access was to come from the back lane, unnamed back lane that comes in from Lord's Place. Now, this 100 Dalton Street has been in the family for about 7 generations, and we had an agreement with the neighbour of which we were going to have a battle axe driveway. So some of the land was used in 98 Dalton Street for the driveway, and then the garage was built and we couldn't get access into 100 Dalton Street anyway. But the issue is part of the land in 98 Dalton Street belongs to 100 Dalton Street, and we just want those boundaries clarified so that there's no negative impact to 100 Dalton Street or any disadvantage now or in the future. And one of my main concerns is if they get to subdivide and we don't have off-road parking for 100 Dalton Street, that's a concern if we try to do the same thing in the future. That's it.
Thanks very much, Fiona, and I'm sure our staff will follow up with you. Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Kathy Carroll, and that's BBC Agenda Item 2.2 DA 242/2021-1, 98 Dalton Street, Kent. Thank you very much, Kathy.
Mr. Mayor, Kathy Carroll has not yet appeared on Zoom, so I'm afraid to assume she's not speaking.
Sorry, excuse me. Kathy's my sister, so we're share owners of 100 Dalton Street. So her concerns have been addressed.
Thank you.
Same concerns. Thanks very much, Fiona. Now, the council meeting will now resume.
Mr. Mayor, would you mind if I have
Just before the council meeting resumes, I'd just like to call on Councillor Whitton to address the council.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Very much appreciated. Andrew McDougall has asked me as the chair to say a few words tonight about OPTEC, and I've just made a few notes to sort of capture a little bit of the history of the organisation. So, on behalf of OPTEC Limited, the directors and staff, I'm pleased to welcome fellow Orange City councillors and staff to the restored old town hall building, which OPTEC call our headquarters. OPTEC has occupied this building since January 1990. We are proud to host this anniversary meeting today, confirming the long relationship going back to the organisation's start in the late 1970s. Alderman Bob Farrell was an early chairman of the youth organisation operating out of the old Gasworks building, then the ABC building in Lord's Place. I'm sure the mayor will remember those days. Within the next 20 years, the organisation was running out of council buildings and paying rent, one in March Street and the other in Lord's Place. For some perspective, the first government grant in the order of $46,000 was from the Commonwealth, and 2 staff salaries for $280 a week. And both those, one of those was Andrew. During the 1980s, the Commonwealth refused to fund Commonwealth services by local government, so OPTEC became an association. This occurred in December 1987. The honorary treasurer during this time was Barry Jeffries, the council's then chief clerk, later to become deputy general manager and then an alderman. For a period, Councillor Duffy was part of the OPTEC team. Remember those days, Councillor Duffy?
Took the service levels never seen before.
That's going to be second.
And certainly the mayor, Councillor Kidd, and Councillor Taylor and myself are currently board directors of OPTEC and have been for some many, many years, and the mayor for some 30 years. I myself since 1997. Fast forwarding to 2021, we see an organisation that now employs over 500 staff, located in over 200 locations across New South Wales, Victoria, ACT and Queensland. With OPTEC's annual turnover in the order of 75 million, we provide services and caseloads of over 24,000 people. Over the past 45 years, we have delivered a highly successful, efficient business model, allowing investment in our local community. As happens over the past 6 months, we've invested into Orange, 6 million investments in Derby. We've also been very proud to be in a position to invest our clients' local services. In 2021, we'll see Octec invest over 12 million of our own revenues back into our clients in those services, one of which is the Hungry Berry Fund. And certainly we sponsor an Indigenous cricket teams, both male and female, in Rockhampton. As a non-for-profit, we see the significant investment in our clients as underpinning the philosophy of supporting the neediest and the disadvantaged. And to give you some idea, recently in 2015, Octec established a computer learning facility in Goldie College in the Solomon Islands. And this particular school, it's the first computers in that area in the Solomon Islands, in any school in the Solomon Islands. And the electricity runs on generator. So it was a great event. There's over 600 students. We provide 80 workstations. And mine, who's seen here today, that is his homeland and his skill. And he and his team manage that facility from here in Orange. So it gives us great pleasure. Mayor's, it's one of our shining stars. So all of this, I have to mention Councillor Nugent as the Deputy CEO. All of the achievements of Octec have come from year one until the present day have been under the leadership and guidance of Mr. Andrew McDougall, AOM. A true leader with a vision, passion and belief in the business and his team. A leader who puts others before himself. And we, the board, and those he helps in the community are very grateful. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, councillors, for allowing me to give you some insight and background in Octec. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Whitton. I think Octec is the the star in Orange that most people don't even know exists. We employ over 500 people now across 3 states. And started off with one person. We started off with Andrew McDougall, who met tonight. I've been involved in the committee for 40 odd years, and I just can't believe the zest that Andrew McDougall and the passion that a person has found, not only in the job, but in the restoration and conservation of many buildings in Orange, including Pro Patrick up the road, Bluestone College down the road, the Lands Office down the road now, and a range of others in Windsor and Richmond. And I think at the end of the day, there's 2 things that are so important to me. Is that here is an organisation that's driven by community input and members. People don't like that. So I think it's not always on the front page of the paper that counts. It's really what's happening out in the community. It's quite important. So I'd like to congratulate Andrew again and his partner Jan, who's been a very part of it, and the numerous staff over those years and the numerous programs that have been run, often in very difficult areas and in areas that other people don't want to really be involved in. I think it's quite important that Orange, through Octec, leads the way in those. Thanks, Councillor Whitton. It's the opportunity to meet you tonight. Thank you. Now, council meeting resumes. We have a number of label items. There was label item notice 1, cover sheets, 512, grant fund income. Label item notice 2 on the cover sheets, the mayor of the minute, and myself. Item 5.13 is reallocation of funding for cricket field play fencing, provided under separate coverage notice for patrons on the cover sheets. Item 5.9, central tablelands ecosystem park, the distributor, sports precinct, the old sports precinct site, 16. We need to programs to do with those label items for and against. So all in favour? Against? Now, first one is label item 2.1. And that's a mural from myself, and it's about an interactive mural on the eastern wall of the city centre. I'd like to move it. Also, Mr. Bird, thanks, Councillor Henry. Look, I put this forward because, and I don't very I've seen it, just my son and daughter were involved in a project in New York, which just really tickled my fancy from various perspectives. And I showed it to friends at the Art Gallery and friends at the Art Gallery and at the Regional Museum. And if you think about the eastern wall of the Civic Centre, you look out from the Brownstone Cafe, it's a blank wall. And these murals are painted and you can attach it to the wall. But what's more important about these murals is that, I'm not really skilled on computers, so then they're put together, anyhow, they get an IT person in, and what happens, you come along with your phone, you can look at the mural, it's fantastic, you put your phone up and press the button, and it all becomes interactive. So if it's flowers, you see bees flying to the flowers, and hummingbirds flying to the flowers opening. If you move to the side, it's three-dimensional, looking up from either side. Now, this one I'm talking about in New York, it's won incredible amount of prizes right across the United States. It's made media in Europe, and I think I do know there's one that looking on the city, but I think we could be right in front. We're not talking about a huge amount of money, but we're talking about some, if you like, artworks that really fix up that precinct with the blank wall. There's something that would promote a lot of media into Orange. People can view from up on the grassed area or on the steps or in the cafe or over the library or in the art gallery or whatever. It's a feature that can attract people to Orange. Oh, and I'll shoot. We have the video. Have you worked it?
We can try to show you.
My technical expert will try and show this video because I've got no idea how to show it.
Thank you, Mr. Dallas. If you can try the video, that would be great.
We'll try this.
We can quickly do it. Oh.
This is the blood. Right.
They won't do it. They need to turn audio on when they share it.
This is as good as it gets.
Okay, that's a mural. Piece of blood that Jackson painted it. Just at the side. If you like, that was painted separately, then attached to the end of this building. So what happens, you can remove it and put it in different areas if you want to. And then there's IT experts put it on to do it. That's the idea that they look here.
It's tomorrow and enjoy it. It's beautiful.
Other things.
Let's see the bees and
Survive to the community.
no, doesn't matter. But anyhow, what happens is that mural, it's got flowers on there. Once you put your phone on or an iPad or whatever, the flowers open and start moving, and the bees come in, and the hummingbird move to each side. Gives you the three-dimensional effect. The reason I mention it is that the CEO has been through it. This one I know, it's a person I know got it done, and got that much attention in New York that all these people just to go there on the weekend, have coffee, thinking take a photo, get their photo taken in front of it, but it sold all the units in the 4-story complex. So it is really an exciting part of, I think, cultural art, which can get people involved in, which can move, in spirit. So I thought I'll put it up. I've spoken to the members of the Friends of the Art Gallery, and I've spoken to some people from Friends of the Regional Museum, shown them, and they just think it's a fantastic idea that perhaps that they could get involved in raising funds. It's not a huge expense, by the way. And the reason I've suggested that end wall, because if you go down there, it's cement, it's nothing. There's been talks about it, but I did investigate what you can do. You could also perhaps something different. You could do it on a thing that actually rolls up. If you ever want to use that wall to show laser shows or do something else on that wall, you could. You actually could. So that's the motion.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I think it's a great idea. I'd rather see something like that on a wall than a blank wall, and especially down in that precinct. That's pretty busy down there with lots of, especially in the mornings, having coffee with young families, young children and their parents. So, you know, any interaction that they could do on that wall, I think it would just enhance that area. So I think it's a great idea.
Thank you.
Yeah, look, I'm also happy to support it. I think any public art, increasing public art in Orange is a good thing. And particularly at the cultural precinct, it seems very appropriate to have it in that location. And so, yeah, and I wonder, in terms of funding, you know, we've got the OC Future City project going on. Perhaps some funding from that project in future years could be directed to this particular project. We are doing a number of murals, and I just noticed, I think down the road here, sort of facing the Uniting Church, they've just started work on the mural down there. So more public arts, activating, helping to activate that cultural precinct space, I think is a fantastic thing. Very happy to support it.
Yeah, great idea, Mr. Mayor. I think it ticks two boxes, not only from an art perspective, but a technology as well, because like you, I've had the pleasure of seeing this type of technology at events and shows, and what it does, it helps programmers to develop code on the mobile. So what happens is that there are little triggers in the wall that trigger the app in the phone. So when they do it, so you could actually have all sorts. You could have one painting that does many things, right? And it's all reprogrammed by the apps on the phone. So I'm all for making Orange a precinct of technology as well as art, right? You tick the two boxes and that.
Thanks, Councillor Dunn.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's a fantastic idea. I look at the financial implications. It says nil. It's warm and fuzzy, so I think we'll take your word for it and we'll back you 100%.
Look, if I can answer that question, I can tell you what that one cost about 30, I think it was 40,000 for the mural, 5,000 for technology, which is absolutely nothing. And it is 30 feet by 24 feet. 30 feet by 24 feet. And I mean, I think that's just mind-boggling. That's very little. And in saying that, yeah, I think certainly it would be easy to raise community funding for doing something like that.
Just a quick question. So what happens now? We're acknowledging this. Is just move forward with a report, come back to the new council. How would that?
Well, two things. I'd like to recommend the information contained in there needs to be acknowledged, and I'm going to suggest and secondly that council go ahead and do something. Do it. And that's it. The next council do something about it, discuss it with Art Gallery. Moving forward and whatever, I think it's a way forward because we've been talking about that wall for a long time. It's that Flint wall, and I think that this getting in first and doing something would be very good promotion. So I'm suggesting the recommendation that information manual be acknowledged and council go forward in actually doing it.
Yeah, that'll be part of the motion.
Yeah.
Happy with
Is
that.
everyone happy with that? That's great.
Sorry.
I just had a question.
Just councillor.
I think you said, Mr. Mayor, that you can move it, like, is it, so it's not?
There's two ways. What they do is do the mural and attach it to the wall.
And attach
The one you're seeing here was done off the building and then attached to the building. So if you ever want to move it somewhere, like a park or up there or whatever, it's movable. My just second thought, I had one on my yard and things like that. And I spoke to the people, well, what if it was on some sort of whatever canvas, sort of thing that's down there, that perhaps could roll up and you've still got that wall with some screen that comes down, you have laser shows or show a movie or whatever it may be. I think that would really make that precinct.
Mr. Mayor, just adding to what you've said, I think when around Christmas time, what we did see when people were coming to Orange, when we had that arch down in Robinson Park, there's a lot of people, visitors who come to Orange are looking for a photo opportunity with some significant type of structure, and that may lend itself to that. So once it becomes well known, I think that's what you'll probably see is people wanting to get the photos like they did the arch.
Yeah, good. I think, the CEO and the staff put a very, very simple cheap thing in Cook Park last Christmas, that archway. Like, gee, the amount of people that turned up on Facebook, getting their photo taken in front, visitors on people they've never seen before, people around Orange standing in front of that archway coming into Robson Park, and it was an archway made of glass. And I think this is very, very of getting both national and international media for Orange.
Ask a clarification. Through Mr. Chair, $45,000, was that American dollars?
Yes,
That
was 40,000.
Yeah, so just for council's benefit, when you vote on this, we are actually voting, from my understanding, that let's say 60,000 Aussie dollars to go into a program. So are you directing me to put that in for future city spending for the next year? Is that what you're directing?
Yeah, well,
I need sources of money.
Okay, I'm saying to direct that, but I have back from the Friends of the Gallery who raised hundreds of thousands of dollars in Janice Museum, got quite willing to raise the funds.
I just need some direction. Now, I'm going to put something there.
I have a question.
Can I get that?
My question, Mr. Mayor, is the Fenton report says financial implications are nil. But I don't have a problem believing that the CEO is heading to, whereas if it's $60,000 or $70,000, that is of concern, but it's not a major concern of mine. I think we're looking, if we're doing next year's budget now, it should be in that.
That's right.
Yeah, that's what I just want to get that understanding. That's what we're doing. Yeah. We're not saying put it out of this year's to next year's budget. And I think it's a fantastic idea. And that's why I agree with you.
Groups in Orange raise the funding.
Yeah.
You're ahead, aren't you?
And there could be funding from state or federal for art activation.
In fact, I'm very, very keen on being able to take this motion forward to some politicians that will get it funded, I'm dead sure.
Well, I think it's important, Mr. Mayor, that we give. I think it's important.
He's running.
Sorry. I think it's very important that Orange Council come up with these really revolutionary ideas for Bathurst, right? For Bathurst City Council, because without our ideas and what we do and move forward, Bathurst City Council have no ideas what to do.
Okay, I'll put a motion. All in favour? Against. Thank you very, very much.
You made the museum.
Now,
Right, so the license.
first of all, we have confirmation of minutes of the previous meeting. Council held on the 19th of October. It's item 3.
Have it on the
Move Councillor Newton and second Councillor Whitley. All in favour? Yes, thank you. We now move the council meeting now adjourned to the conduct of the policy committee meetings. First of all, planning and development chaired by Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just if I may, before I start, I'm very proud to, Councillor Whitman, I'm very proud to accept this and it will go into my office at home, where there are other various photos of my parliamentary career and my council career. And so I put that up with a lot of pride. And it is one of those things that reminds me of why I'm not standing for the next term of council. When I said celebrating 75 years, when you think that I've been on council and lived in state parliament in between for half of that 75 years. The other reason I made a good decision not to stand this time, I was talking to Jack Evans the other day, and he said, out of respect for what I've done for the community and as one of the elders of the community, he referred to me as Mr. Turner, not Russell. So I was trying to give it away. Without further ado, Mr. Mayor, I'll open the Planning and Development Committee, the last one for this council term, after 5 years and 3 months. We have an apology from Councillor Taylor. I don't think there are any others, and there's been no pecuniary interest declared. So I'll go to 2.1, items approved under the delegated authority of council, moved by Councillor Whitman, seconded by Councillor Hamlin. Any discussion on this particular 2.1? No discussion. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Unanimous. 2.2, development application 98 Dalton Street.
Mr. Mayor,
Been moved by Councillor Munro, seconded by Councillor Nugent. Discussion.
Chair, I have concerns with this one. When we have ratepayers come here and they're talking about generations of 7 10, they've been there for 7 generations, and we're talking about a laneway at the back of it, and there could things such as tracking use and all these type of things could come into play. But I don't think we should be disturbing these people without giving it a good hard look at it. And I think we can easily have a look at the site where we're going to have a look where the roadway is and all that type of stuff, where the impact might be on.
Mr. Councillor David?
Sorry?
You're moving for a deferment?
I'll move to deferment to the next meeting.
Do we have a seconder for that?
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Seconded by Councillor Whitman.
Through Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair, Councillor Williams caretaker motion.
So this won't come back until February.
So this won't come back to the new council sits in early February.
Well, I'm happy with that because I think we've got to be seen doing the right thing by the ratepayers, and especially those generations that one family's been there all the time to just say, hang on, we're just going to do this without us actually visiting the site. And with due respect, I probably should have visited myself there. With that, we've had a hectic few weeks with what's actually going on with the election. But I really do believe that we need to give this some good consideration and move on from there.
Can I ask
Yeah. Look. Sorry.
Sorry, Councillor Murdo, I didn't know.
That's sorry. I think I would like to see this one progress with council staff consulting the applicants. And I think that we should allow that to occur, and if there's a problem, well, then it can come back to council. But I don't see why we should hold up the process. We did hear from council staff earlier speaking to the applicant, Fiona Towns, who was on Zoom, and they said that we're going to consult with her. If there's an issue with it, I think it should come back to council then, but I don't see why we should hold up the project as such, unless there is a problem.
Councillor Newton?
Yeah, I had a question, really following up from what Councillor Modo said, and through you, Mr. Chair, perhaps to Mr. Johnson, about the boundary. So the principal issues seem to be boundaries needing clarification. And so I guess my question is, following on, can that boundary clarification be done in the process of, does that need to be done before we approve the DA? Can it be done in the process of after the DA has been approved?
I'll draw your attention to clause 19 of the consent, which I believe is that one, page 38.
Okay.
I'll put a condition in the same program for the subdivision to surveys which in a written statement which is provided for the facility by authority saying that the buildings within the boundaries of the property, 100 comply with respect to the distances of walls to boundaries. Now, that's a pretty standard condition, and what that does, the submission that was received from the adjoining property, and I understand that it was two families from many, many years, and the properties were held in different ownership, or in ownerships. One property has been recently sold. So it's sort of like an assumed gentleman's agreement about one day we'll get access through the property. There's only one driveway now. We've done research through the council record systems, and it appears that the driveway itself is wholly within 98 Dalton Street. It appears that the garage is wholly within 98 Dalton Street. Also, a review of any covenants or restrictions on the title, and it doesn't appear to be any covenants or restrictions on the title either. But in any event, this subdivision relates to the subdivision of the rear of the property. It's subdivided a very small sort of section, and it doesn't change, I guess, the existing access to which the applicant of the adjoining neighbours have raised concern about. So I believe that I think in all reasonableness, it would be appropriate to attach the condition, and then what that does, that'll show the distance of the boundaries. They reach the sheds across the boundary, but it'll be pulled up in the subdivision, so it's not issued at that particular time. So I don't think there's much else we can do at this particular time. The applicants, the objectors next door have not provided council any evidence to provide way other than to suggest that family members, gentlemen's agreement, it was always a business, this has been a case, and I haven't been able to find anything to move around at this stage.
That being said, I was just going to ask a question. I think Mr. Johnston's answered my question. I was just going to say, have we spoken to the family? They indicated on that they raised this a new number of years ago.
I understand it was raised in going back about 2015. I put in their submission. That as part of the formal submission period, this is on they again raised submission in the council, and we've attempted to address that submission as part of it. I haven't been specifically in contact with them.
Just a point of clarification, in going what Councillor Miletto said, he said, I think move ahead with it, and we can, any problems turn up, we can sort it out later on. I think the situation when we spoke about the domestic violence centre, when housing plus said, oh, we'll look at bringing it in from in the NDR, and then they said, get lost. We're coming down that street down there. So if we approve what we've got here, it's in concrete. It's not moving anywhere except what they got. We've given the developer what to do. We've given, I believe, not enough due consideration to the people who just want a review or want a definition of what or a defined boundary, what's actually there. And I think we owe them that to find out what it is.
Councillor Munro.
I'm not trying to say no, don't go ahead with the development or anything like that when it comes back. But I think we owe it to the ratepayers to respect their decision. Say, hey, so we want to know.
Councillor Munro.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Look, I think, we, as of what Mr. Johnson has just said, there's no impediment to the neighbours because of this DA going through, as far as their access or egress, is there? No. I think in all fairness, if there's no legal reason why this can't go forward, as far as somebody's boundary being in the wrong spot or anything, I think it should be decided tonight, because February is a terrible long way away to have somebody sit on something just because we can't make our mind up this evening, in my opinion.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Councillor.
So that's I support the recommendation.
Councillor Whitman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just, I suppose, carrying off what Councillor Miletto says is that if we do approve the instrument of approval, then we can't change it. We can't revisit it, right? But Mr. Johnson, you made mention that in the conditions here that they have to do a survey of the site anyway. Sorry, I'm looking around the road.
Yeah,
So one of the conditions is before the developer does anything, that all the sites have to be resurveyed to figure out where the boundaries are. Is that a fair?
and that's the only way to actually practically
Yeah.
Looking at records, it's pretty accurate, but it's probably not entirely accurate.
Yeah, sure.
And the only way you get it is an ident survey.
And I think Councillor Kidd was next.
Look, I'm going to approve the recommendation going through because look, you can't delay this through February, which is quite obvious. April, but it's quite legal. Now, there might be agreements that have been made 10, 50, 100 years ago, I don't know. But if you look at the stuff we've already done, we're going through council records, and there's no record. You have to go on what is law, any, and I'm quite sure if there's anything that comes in that can be discussed with the opponents. But I think we have to approve it now. We can't do that every. I didn't.
My question there. Okay, any other comments? I'll then put the amendment, which in effect you understand will be.
No, I'm ready to
Ready to
vote.
vote, are you? Ready to vote, right. We'll be deferring it to the first meeting in February. So all those in favour of the amendment? Those against? I think it might be lost, Councillor Duffy. I'll now put the recommendation. All those in favour? Yeah. It's now unanimous. We go on to 2.3, development application for 643 Mitchell Highway.
I'd like to move the recommendation, Chair. The council
Councillor Kitts moved. Do we have a seconder?
Well, I hear it.
He changed. The council
Right, okay,
moves to the council does make a submission on the application to the Western Regional Planning.
Okay.
Let's speak.
Do we have a seconder for that motion?
Yeah.
Councillor Whitten? Yes.
Okay.
Councillor Malone?
I support that council make a submission on the application to the Western Regional Planning Panel. As I said before, which has also been highlighted by the application to their division DA, is that it would appear that the first 25 years operation of the solar farm would barely cover the cost in the first place. So that to me is a concern. So in light of that situation, it is even more important, I feel, the council seeks guarantees also from the developer that the site can be properly remediated at the end of its viability without cost to the council. Obviously, the other issues which I had related to substation, etc., but also an access road needs to have prior development approval, which may also increase the cost of the overall development. So basically, I think the council should highlight council's concerns, which were raised in last meeting, plus these additional ones, and strongly voice objection to it. And as council has previously stated, we're not against solar industrial precincts per se. It's just a location which I have that issue with. So I think we need to articulate that more firmly than we have done previously.
Can I just clarify what I'm saying in that is that, yes, we are making a submission that we object to their proposal, DA that's come into council now, to extend the period of time and the other elements of it, which just builds on to our previous objection to the location.
Councillor Newton?
I'll speak against the recommendation that's been put forward. What we're talking about is a development that has already been approved by the Western Regional Planning Panel. My understanding from talking to people involved in the community cooperative is that the development is going ahead. So based on the fact that it is going ahead, it has been approved, or what we're talking about now is whether to enable it to be a more viable project over a longer period of time. So we're talking, given that it's going to be built, we should allow it to sort of remain there for 35 years to get the maximum benefit out of the investment that is going into putting it there in the first place. And I think we should get behind the community cooperative, which is made up of local people, and will look after 44%, up to 44% of that development. We should get behind people who are in rental accommodation and can't access renewable energy or can access renewable energy through this project. whereas they cannot put solar panels on their own house. I think we should get behind people who maybe have houses that aren't conducive to solar energy and want to join the co-op and access renewable energy in this way. So, and also we should get behind the investment that this project will bring to Orange in terms of the government funding that has already been attached to the project, the jobs that it will generate. So I think it's time that we got behind it. And given that it is going to go ahead, it has been approved, we should allow it to go for the 35 years. And I don't think there's any issue in terms of remediation of the site because the conditions of approval require that. And if we allow it to run for 35 years, that'll make it more viable for that remediation to occur. So I speak against the recommendation.
Clarification, Mr. Clarification of the CEO. My understanding is that they've applied for an extension of 10 years from 25 to 35 years. My question through you, Mr. Chair, to the CEO. My understanding of the 25-year plan for Orange is that in the next 25 years, the town will progress to be on the boundary of this solar industrial precinct. So if we go another 10 years, are you able to indicate what impact that would have on the Orange into the future? Because my understanding is 25 years, we're going to be up against it. So to allow another 10 years, how is that going to affect the already stressed housing market in Orange moving forward in the future?
Well, I'll give a general answer through you, Mr. Chair, and I think that it would be fair to say that, yeah, that land is earmarked for housing in the future, and it would constrain supply to the north and west, leaving it with not much land to the directly north. Before we get to Bond water catchment on the reeds, and the only alternative then staying up and out. So, yeah, what you raised is an interesting question. 25 years from now, hard to say.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm very interested in Councillor Nugent's comments. Viable for whom? Has your electricity rate come down? How many people is employed? What's the story? We don't make decisions on viability. We're going to make a decision on what are they going to do with their waste. They're extending the period because we don't know what they're going to do with the waste. What happens with the waste that comes off these panels when they see their lifetime, whatever the case may be? It's a case where I've absolutely lost faith in the Central West Regional Planning Commission because they went against the principles of Orange not being in the zone that is suitable for solar energy. Unlike what they did in Mudgee, they went a different way. They said, no, it's not suitable. But hang on, go out a bit further. But I don't think your resolution is strong enough, Mr. Mayor. It could be say we should have been very solid about it. Hang on, we're not going to go there and say, oh, but if you do this, we'll accept it, or whatever the case may be. No, we're against this thing, and as simple as that. I don't think the Central West Regional Panel in this instance has done the right thing by the people of Orange, and I just get annoyed with the situation that these things are going to be so viable and so helpful that everyone on our electricity is going to be free and it's all going to come down. What a load of rubbish. Simple as that.
Do you have a question, Councillor?
I do have a question. So in terms of the local housing strategy, my understanding is that the land that this will be built on is not included in the local housing strategy at this stage. So it's not foreseen that that land will be required for housing development in the next 20 years because the housing strategy goes through to 2041. So it's going to be a number of years after that that it might be required for housing development. So that's, I guess, the question. Is that the case? The second aspect of that is my understanding is that last year the staff recommendation was to approve the development for 35 years. And it was actually a decision by the Western Regional Planning Panel to put a condition on to reduce the length of the life of the solar farm to 25 years. So the staff recommendation 12 months ago was to approve it to 35 years. Is that the case?
So, yeah.
Mr. Johnson. So two questions there. The first one was when Councillor Planning Panel, which was considered the development application, it was included in the council's current release strategy for residential development. That was prepared back in 2004. and it's been subsequently amended over time. I can confirm that the strategy document that council have voted upon here at the last meeting in relation to the housing strategy moving forward, and moving forward for a period of 20 years, it is excluded, goes right up to the border of this particular site. So the actual site of the solar farm is excluded at the moment, and bearing in mind that this strategy that the council has put on, you've only resolved to place that particular strategy on public exhibition, and that document will come back to the new council in the new year, and the council could do any number of different things with that particular strategy and adopting it. It might extend it, might pull it back, might go in a different direction. So that's the point that I need to make at that particular time. I think that's answered your question there. The second point,
Did staff approve 30 sites? So based on the current housing strategy, did staff recommend approval for 35?
Yes, the recommendation through to the Joint Regional Planning Panel had a recommendation for it to be developed for the purpose of 35 years, and it's correct that the Joint Regional Planning Panel in their deliberations on that application commission back to 25, and that's hence the reason why the position of that commission by the Joint Regional Planning Panel means that it needs to go back to the Joint Regional Planning Panel to make
the decision.
And there are things that we're working through there in terms of Bruce Court of Appeal decisions in relation to modifications that may have an impact upon that, which will be investigated as part of the planning review that will be prepared.
Just as a point of clarification, Mr. Chairman, the new council can vary that housing strategy if it so wishes.
Correct.
They can change that to whatever they so wish, and to me, that's just we did it with the airport, but we can do it with the housing strategy. So you know, it's the same with the new council can probably run away from the sports precinct to get the green and those things on
Is
this.
this a question?
Councillor Pitt.
Look, I think there's a couple of really important points here. First of all, going to the housing strategy, it's a draft document that is out there, draft, which means right until the end of February, people can come forward and have input, agree, disagree, extended, contracted, or whatever. That's not set in concrete. And I'll guarantee you out that way, there will be submissions that come in. Number two, that this project is viable. What a lot of poppycock. If it was viable, it is half met by a government grant, by a group of people that are not from Orange, that relies on them raising funds in this community. How come they've extended their period of time in raising the funds? They have not been able to raise the funds, which shows that the majority of people in Orange do not agree with investing their hard-earned cash in an investment that's not going to return much for them. This does not in any shape or form stack up that they're going to get cheaper electricity. That is poppycock. It's been a whole host of emotive arguments used in this by a group of people not from Orange. Just got the floor, by a group of people in a company. Then we've had a number of forums or days to encourage people to put money into this, which have been attended by hardly anyone. That's the truth of the matter. And I can tell, having solar management, and a number of people have shown me how I'm going to achieve electricity. Because if you do, please let me know I'm doing something dramatically wrong. I have a 5 kilowatt system on my house, and another one on the farm, right? That's a lot of rubbish. This is purely a motivation, and I'm for alternative energy, right? As I said in this chamber and other places, I'm all for it, but in the right place. Not in an area that has become an eyesore, right? Not in an area where you're looking at possible future development, and not the way that this went through. Now, forget to the planning matter, and I'm afraid I'm going to say this, Councillor Turner, and I know that you're on it. I haven't got a real lot of time for these planning panels. because the planning panel is appointed by the government, and we've just seen recently what they can do. A council agreement on Cold House, what we should do with it. It goes to them and they agree with it. A government department who appoints a panel puts an objection in. Oh, we're going to have another meeting and they overturn it.
Have you nearly finished, Mr.
No.
Someone like to move an extension?
Yeah, move it.
Councillor Duffy, the
Second,
second.
councillor Ryan.
Yeah. Now,
Councillor
what
Ryan.
happened? They overturned and that ruling. Now, whether I'm on council or not, I'm going to object very, very strongly because I think it is an absolute preposterous what they're doing. What in the hell are they doing? Why have council make decisions on any planning matter in here and have a look at the thickness of what we're doing tonight, where a planning panel can overturn it, or secondly, a planning panel can agree with it, but a government instrument can come in and say we want you to review it. They never took up our we want to review and have quick grounds for it. They have come to review the full house, and in this one, they didn't. Secondly, as part of this one, come to the planning panel. I can guarantee you, in one form or another, as a councillor or as not a councillor, I will be at that planning panel and I will jump up really loudly if I'm allowed to address that planning. Because the last time of this whole thing, I was told that I couldn't. Councillor Newton addressed that thing and spoke on behalf of saying, well, that's not how people are wanting to be.
Sorry, Councillor.
First, sorry, that's the truth. That's the truth of the matter. You did speak at, hold it, sorry, Councillor, you did speak at it.
Yes, I did.
Sorry,
You said I warned you that Will Robson.
no. Sorry, Councillor Newton, I've got, not you.
Councillor Kidd, I think you've got your message across at the start.
And I think what is quite important in this case here, we need to make the submission that we strongly object to it, because no, we're not going to be playing around with and then extending and fiddling and that. I think because we were against it being in that position from the beginning. We were very strong in that position, 10-1 I think it was, and all the way through. So, yes, I think we make the submission, start make the submission to it on those grounds, and I will speak.
Right. Don't think anyone else got any other comments. I'll move the motion that we do make a submission. You've got enough information, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Waddell, to put in a submission? Okay. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? One. The motion is carried. 2.4, Orange Local Environmental Plan for Rosedale Gardens, and might note that it is only for a change in the number of blocks. There's nothing to do with the environmental concerns you might have or anything like that.
Can I ask you a question?
It's been moved by councillor Hamlin, seconded by. I'll second it then.
I will second you.
Oh, sorry. Okay, councillor Newton.
Can I ask a question
You can.
on this one? Again, I have a little bit of difficulty in seeing developments go through and the argument is moved for this reason and for that reason, and council thinks that's fantastic, and we decide and we approve it, and then it comes in and it almost doubles in our lot size. I asked the question of staff now. This development, which I think is fantastic, was talking about being basically from multi-node water neutral. Now we're going to collect the water off this side, these bigger lots, and then go into ponds, and it was going to be environmentally friendly. Surely if you go from 450 to 700, does that still apply, or does it need to make sure that we have those services to those houses before service?
Through this chair, I think that would be component to actually prove. Having been to a couple of meetings with the component recently, there's still their vision. I don't think at this rezoning stage we have that much fine grained detail. That's my answer at this stage.
Councillor Newton.
Yeah, look, I'm happy to see this this change, because I think it allows for perhaps a greater diversity of lot sizes over time when it eventually gets developed. Some of them will be, probably that minimum lot size of 2,000 square metres, but others that are on more steep, sloping land could be bigger, like 3,000 to 4,000 square metres. The land is going to be developed. It's highly likely that land is going to be developed. We will need it at some stage in terms of the housing stock for Orange. And to me, if we can have 700 residences on that land rather than 450, that's probably a better use of the land. It's not as though we're talking about quite, small lot sizes. It's still 2,000 square metres, so it still allows for on-site, water management, and I think, and it's at the stage where it's going for gateway determination, so it's fairly early in the process, and I'm happy for it to go ahead. I'll be interested to see what the detailed design is when it comes back to the next council at some point in the future.
Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm quite happy to support it. Again, as always, my major concern is that the access roads in and out of the complexes we have, will it fit into the infrastructure that we have planned for either side of what this is coming out towards the CSU and all those other areas out there? And will they be adequately done? Because as I said, you can travel around some of these roads, they've got beautiful little bends and they all look nice and pretty, but the heavy vehicles that are going around them are doing some damage in the they give away. And I just wonder whether we will ensure that they're compacted properly and one, they are wide enough to take service vehicles, especially on the
I'm sure the council staff will look into all those concerns sometime in the future, Councillor Duffy.
Councillor Tony, I'd like an answer from the thing, do we have the infrastructure to supply Auckland sewer to 700?
Yeah, well, Mr. Chair, we'll ask Mr. Green perhaps to answer the water question. We'll also, Mr. Chair, we'll also engage this process with agencies, so including RFS. You go through transport, go through the bus, probably even the bus.
Mr. Green.
Welcome.
The question is, given the increase of lot yield, even previously they had a vision to, generate their own water from harvesting, is this going to detract from that yield?
That's one, you would have the infrastructure there to supply water and sewage to 700 plus lots versus 470.
And the sewer is yet to be constructed. So that'll be another developer. The water, we already have large size mains going out to there. The intensification of development from the proposed for 4 lots now, there's 700 lots, will actually increase the amount of runoff for small parts. So the balance should still be there. So, but that'll still be a matter for the developer. There was also a question about whether the roads would be impacted. Essentially, one of our requirements under the new subdivision code is that we do what they call a B test. So that will pick up any deflection within the road before you seal the road. What that does is check not only deflection, but it also puts an override in there that you actually test the soil below, design the road to those soil conditions, and then also make sure you impact the properly against the appropriate materials. Because if you get too much deflection, you'll get a phase, and that was one of the things that the Mayor and I drove around in the first 3 months of council and had a look at some of the subdivisions where we sort of some roads. We addressed that through the subdivision code.
You have a question, Councillor.
Yes, a question. So Mr. Graham was talking, I was thinking about the local housing strategy and wondering how, and this might not be a question for Mr. Graham, but wondering how this relates to the local housing strategy. Presumably it's included in the local housing strategy, this land, and would have been, had 450 odd yield, and now we're talking about 700. Does that impact on other greenfield sites?
Through Mr. Chair, we actually allowed for this densification in the strategy parts of that.
Thank you.
Now, if I may just comment, I took the opportunity to have a site visit the other day with Mr. Healy, and all I can say is if he is fair dinkum as he appeared to be, and I know some of us have had some conversations with Mr. Healy in the past, he sees it as a dream, and a legacy of his, etc., etc. I would hope that that dream is fulfilled. There's a long way to go, and what he proposed out there with the network of roads and the network of water courses and the homes facing with water views, etc. He talked about a railway crossing off Clergate Road, which was going to cost him close on $1 million, etc. So if he is fair dinkum with this and he can work with the council, it is a huge boost for Orange. As he said, it's something like a square mile development. That is a huge development. It's not only the 700 blocks, it's all the what will end up being water courses and public walkways, etc., take up a considerable more amount of land, more than the 700 acres. Some of the views are just absolutely fantastic. But people are going to pay $1 million for some of the views on the higher country. But some of the country goes to 900 metres, higher than Orange. It is. I can just hope that Mr. Healy can work with the new council and work with staff to get this to the reality of what he is dreaming about, and we get very close to that reality. It is some years off. It'll be staged, etc., etc., and there'll be some arguments environmentally wise with neighbours, etc., etc. But I got the feeling that Bob wanted to work with the council to make this happen. I hope it does, because it's a fantastic dream that he's got, and it'll be fantastic for Orange.
Just a quick question to the director. Is the land that's under this thing, is it all owned by the developer?
Yes.
Not owned by anyone else?
He's got control. Yeah. And it includes the old abattoir site.
Yeah. I didn't know whether he had a bit added to that he didn't own.
I understand he got the freehold one. Councillor Duffy. Munro.
He actually looked like him.
Yeah. Look, I just wanted to say, it has been a dream of his for a long while, and the rate base increase, just the fact that what Orange is going to attain from it, as far as the extra economic boost to our.
And in declaring interest?
No, the money, and I'm just. No, I've got that.
Well, I'm just trying to look at all
Well, you don't have to, me, because I've got a financial interest here, and if I did, I would have said something in the beginning.
Oh, okay.
So what I'm saying is, with this opportunity Bob Healy is bringing to Orange residents is a great uplift to our rate base. And not only that, the contributions that we'll give back to council over many years. So that's what I want to say. Thank you.
Any other comments? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Unanimous. 2.5, changes to short-term rental accommodation.
I'd like to move for a deferral of this item, Mr. Chair.
On what basis?
Oh, do I have?
I'll second it for discussion.
Councillor Malone, second for the discussion.
Why are we referring it, Chair?
Well, that's what we've got to find out.
I was just about to speak. Okay, so why are we deferring? Okay, well, this has come at the very end of this term of council. I think it's quite an important decision, because the the short-term rental accommodation market in particular, as it talks in here about Airbnb and Sage, is having a significant impact. I think it's widely recognised, significant impact on rental property availability. It's, I was in a meeting today, this morning, with a number of mental health professionals who are really concerned about the lack of accommodation, secure accommodation for people who are, you know, recovering from mental health conditions and looking for stable accommodation, somewhere to live. So by allowing the short-term rental market, the non-hosted short-term rental market to operate 365 days a year, that means that's an incentive for people to take more rental properties off the market and put it into short-term rental accommodation, which then has that flow effect to the availability of rental accommodation and the costs of rental accommodation. So I think it's a really important decision. It might look like quite a simple decision on the face of it, but it is, to me, a really important decision. I think it's a decision that should be made by the new council in the context of considering the local local housing strategy and possibly considering an affordable housing contribution scheme. So it should be made by the new council. And if we don't make this decision tonight, the default position is that people can, the 365 days already applies. It's already by default, that's already how it operates. So by not making a decision tonight, we do not change anything. The current situation continues to apply. So, you know, like making an important decision like that, I would like to have more information in front of me, more evidence, and the only real evidence I've got that it should not go with the 180 days limit is a recommendation, a statement by the tourism manager saying that it would have an impact on our tourism industry. Now, yeah, maybe it would, quite possibly it would, but I'd like to see some evidence to sort of back up that statement and what level of impact that would have. So basically, in conclusion, if we don't make a decision tonight, nothing changes. It's a decision that I think should go to the next council.
Yes, I'll move the amendment to recommendation on the paper.
To be noted anyway. Nothing much.
Not a motion.
The second part of the motion is to permit the opportunity for non-hosted short-term rental accommodation to operate within the city 365 days a year. So it's not just that, no. Not just
Councillor King.
I understand what Councillor Legend is saying, and I understand the shortage of social housing, which I think is really important role. But state government has to actually play. I look around at the vacant houses here in Orange and places like Forward House, places like all the buildings at Bloomfield that the government actually own. They could be utilised and refurbished into affordable or into social housing. I do worry when we start making basic business decisions on who can put their place on the market for what price. That's the law of supply and demand and purely a commercial decision. I don't think we have a role, council or the government, to tell people that B&B or whatever it may be how many days per year and do it. But they've invested their money. They've invested their money to do certain things. And if you start getting interference by government, whatever it's government, on what you can and cannot do with it, apart from fire regulations and all that, on how many days that you can actually be up and what you can do with it. I think we're treading on very, very dangerous ground.
Yep. My only comment that I've spoken to two people this week. One person has rental accommodation, and up till recently it was leased for furnished. Sorry, what do you call it? Service department. And they said that, you know, it's a little bit haphazard. They are now going to remove the furniture and put it into long-term rental. Another girl has a service department and she was trying to convince me that the unit that I've got, I should have a service department because it's the best way to make more money. So as you said, Councillor Kidd, let the market forces prevail. Let those people make their own decision. My only concern is that one of the comments there that it could add to the regulatory burden of councils. Mr. Waddell, you got any comment to say on that?
I wasn't quite concentrating. Look, whatever the state does in terms of Airbnbs is already adding to our regulatory burden. They're probably responsible for fire checks and health checks on every building. So I don't think the number of days is going to add to our burden necessarily.
As Councillor Nugent said, it's happening already, nothing's going to change.
Yeah.
Okay, no further comments. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Sorry. Not too worried about what I was going to say. Sorry, what, now remind me what the amendment is. The motion.
Yes,
Amendment is not, I'll put the amendment. All those in favour? Carried. I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Chairman, can I register my vote against the amendment?
Thank you. Councillor Nugent's registered his vote against.
So, Mr. Chair, may I ask a question to the CEO?
Now becomes a motion, let's go.
I thought we had to go around again.
Aye.
Want to go around again?
No.
Councillor.
CEO, what is, if somebody in Orange wishes to have an Airbnb, do they register it with council or they just register it with Airbnb?
Well, okay. Firstly, you register it with Airbnb. There's a various, it's not just Airbnb, right? There's a few platforms you register. Recently, the state said by Monday, yesterday, that if you had an Airbnb, you had to register it with the state. Right? That was not with council. There's a portal you register. And that's for the purposes of then controlling it and then dictating fire regulations and whatnot. And it's my understanding the state will then get asked to do the checking, much like they did with some.
Just a question through you, Mr. Chair. My understanding recently, or up to recently, there's about 240 Airbnbs in Orange. Are we able to indicate how many of those are actually registered?
Did you?
I had a little bit back this afternoon, and there was 62 hosted, registered on the new portal that were required to be registered as of yesterday. There's 52 hosted and 189 non-hosted properties. We have 241 that have registered now, and the obviously probably will do it more to become interested or regularize it. So it's largely the industry that's gone unregulated for a long time. So some regulation around price.
Can I ask a question, Mr. Chair? Yes. So the hosted short-term rental accommodation, is that like
I guess it's
the back room or
That's
the
like-
granny flat? So that's a room in a house or a B&B for bed and breakfast?
Are we having another vote on this one, are we?
I just have a question.
Hosted is like, I open my house up to a guest.
Yeah.
Also,
Boarding home, boarding home.
the non-hosted is that I leave for the weekend and not someone else can have my house for the weekend.
So that's entire, yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the next one. 2.6, development application 149, 153 Summer Street, been moved by Councillor Hampton, seconded by Councillor Munro. Any discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, this is good. I think this is great. I think this is good for tourism, good for locals, gives people another option. It's locally made beer, and he's been doing, I think, on the aggressive growth, correct?
Yeah.
So bringing it in the centre of town, this gives Orange another tourist attraction for all our visitors and tourists, so, and locals, obviously. So yeah, I fully support this.
I think everyone supports it. Let's make the vote. All those in favour? Unanimous vote. All the best for the developments.
Could I add, Mr. Chair, this is also an indication of your previous decision to allow artisan uses into the CBD.
Yep.
So this and that.
And a good use of the facility that's been in for a long time.
Yeah.
We go back as far as Council Kidd and myself and one or two others, used to be able to buy petrol outside Cameron's in Summer Street and get your car serviced in this particular building. So great renewal for that building. 2.7 development application 24 Cedar Street. Recommendation, Councillor Nugent and Councillor Munro. Any discussion? No discussion. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Again, Councillor Duffy. Unanimous. 2.8, development application for 1610 and lot 209 Forest Road. Moved by Councillor Kidd and Councillor Munro. Any discussion?
Look, just one more. And thanks very much for the report, but geez, it just annoys the living hell out of me. The process that we have to go through for public facility here to stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, through heritage planning, through the department planning, to the Western area planning panel, and on and on and on we go. And I'm afraid, and I will say it, this is just a sign of the times where a minority voice can make out there a majority voice, which is through the arenas, which we have to go through, and that's our start. The cost and time that we actually have to go through is something that the majority of people approve and agree with.
Absolutely. Slow Australia down. Okay, I think we all agree with what the Mayor has just said. And,
Mr. Chair, could I seek clarification? Yes. Council, on page 404, recommendation, determine whether or not it makes a submission. Could we?
Yes.
Ask if that's in a positive submission?
A positive.
very positive. Very positive.
Can I ask a question?
Councillor Nugent.
So are we making the submission as the organisation doing the assessment of it, or the proponent, the applicant, because we're the applicant for this development? So why would we need to make a submission if we were already the applicant? So isn't it sort of a bit of a conflict of interest to be both? Through the chair, this is why we will create Chinese laws, and the planner who did the assessment has nothing to do with the submission, which will go to the panel, and I'm hearing that you're very supportive of it, and someone like myself might make a submission to the panel merely saying 9-1 or whatever the vote turns out to be. The council is very supportive.
Or I may go to the planning panel and say that, even though you all agree with it, I don't agree with you against it.
Yeah. This is not a planning solution that necessarily goes in. Just confirm that council is very supportive.
Okay.
So someone to do that, Mr. Mayor. We need to be consistent with everything.
Mr. Chair. That's all right. Well, whether we voted or not. Right. We have, right, all those in favour. Against, Councillor Nugent.
I'll say what the Greens
Okay, that ends the planning and development committee meeting. Last one for this term council. I'll ask Councillor Mileto to conduct the Employment and Economic Development Policy Committee.
Through this chair, Councillor Lamar is at the meeting.
Thank you. I'd like to open the Employment and Economic Development Policy Committee meeting at the time now being 8:30 p.m. From memory, there was no councillors who declared any pure interest, significant non-pure interest, or less than significant pure interest for consideration of this meeting. We go to section number 2, item 2.1, minutes of the Economic Development. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved it, seconded by Councillor Munro. Is there any discussions with regards to this item?
Well, if I just may, congratulations to the staff Tony Boland and others. Actually, there's a lot of detail in these reports on expenditure and what is actually happening in Orange, which really, it's a shame sometimes that the community don't actually read them in depth, because you get some negative comments. But when you get some facts, bound to show some incredible things that are happening. Can I also say, if I may, later, that congratulations to the staff on the work done in McNamara Lane, and it's terrific to be down there Friday night for the opening of McNamara Lane. I think any time to come, not all that far down the track, people will be saying, well, it's a great idea and everyone will own it. But there's a lot of negativity, and I think the most important about as a council look forward to head with some futuristic sort of concepts, as that is. And I was quite amazed looking at those painted things. People pods with people that sort of get in, have a bit of fun with their toe in the water, so to speak, before taking that big jump into mental health. So congratulations to your committee and particularly the council staff.
Another question.
Yes.
Just on the McNamara Lane stuff, and Mayor's right, there was a lot of questions from some of the businesses in McNamara Lane. What's the feedback like now? I suppose that's a question for the director. You had the questions last meeting, so it's a little bit, I've got a whole page for it. Just wondering what that feedback is.
Yeah, I think it's been really positive, and we've already got 3 startups that are lining up to come into those pods. So it seems to be a really nice integration. There's no negative competition, so the existing businesses are very supportive of that, and just drawing more people into that area.
But, so were the businesses that were concerned about aspects of the changes in that street, are they all on board now? Because it was fantastic, but I was wondering what their feedback is.
Yeah, well, when we opened it last week, we actually had participating in the opening. So we had 2 of those businesses that were part of the show opening. And I think my feel of it was that the perception has changed from the beginning of the project.
Yeah, it's much safer street now compared to what it once was. Yeah, so thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Hamilton.
Yeah, just very quickly, Mr. Chair, just want to go Councillor Whitmore. I think considering what that was to what it is now, fantastic, and one of a decision our council should be proud of, because we fixed up an eyesore there, and I think it looks marvellous. It blends itself to community activation and spending time in that precinct. So yeah, great work everyone involved.
Yeah, and I think just to add, it was a nothing, and with all due respect, it was a nothing street, and now it's a go-to place.
Yeah.
Councillor Nugent.
Yeah, look, I agree with everything that's been said. It's a great development. That the street looks great. It'll be a really sort of funky, groovy go-to place for people. It'll be a night, important part of the nighttime economy, I think, going forward. It'd be great to see what was an Enfuso bar, maybe, or a gin bar at some stage. But also, I did have a question, which was in relation to the pop-up pods, the retail pods. When are they likely to, the business is likely to sort of be able to get in and start operating? Can you send that back and see what you see?
Come here.
There you are. That's that right. There you are.
So we have 3 people that want to go into those pods immediately. So this HQ is just assessing those 3 applicants. So I would say that they'll be actually setting up shop and operating.
So possibly by the time we have the weekend celebrations in December.
It'd be great, absolutely.
And so if there's 3 applicants, so one's going to miss out initially.
Yeah, so
will there be the opportunity for them to go in later on?
Exactly right. So the time frame that we've been advised is 3 to 6 months is the time frame to start from startup to getting ready to go into another retail outlet. So they'll have their first 3 to 6 months, and then once that is completed, the next businesses will come in.
And ideally, though,
those people will then move into a permanent location.
Absolutely, that's the goal. So they've built their business up from a
Yeah.
startup and it's now financially viable.
Thank you, councillor Munro.
Good, thank you. You think back a little way when we first had the concept of what's happening in that street, and there was some people in the street that were dead against it, and there was others that really encouraged it. I think everybody would be very happy now. It's come to fruition. It is a good thing that council's done. You know, I applaud staff and all the people and councillors that spoke to the business owners there and sort of got their heart into it, because it has improved that street. And if you do one street at a time, it makes the town a lot better. And it takes time, but we will do one street at a time.
Thank you. As chair of that Employment Economic Development Committee, personally, I'd just like to thank Councillor Whitten for your involvement, the Mayor, when you were there, council staff, Rachel Robb, Tony Boyle, Chair of the Board. During last week, we had a retail forum there, which was attended by a number of business people, and there's a presentation given. And one of the things which came out of that quite strongly with the demographic of people who were coming to Orange, and they highlighted the age groups of those people and what tourists who are coming to Orange are looking for. And one of the things which came up was people looking for, you know, the food and the wine. But an interesting thing which tourists were interested in was the history of Orange. And Orange has a rich history in a number of different areas. It used to be you constantly speak of Banjo Patterson and amongst other things. But we have a strong Indigenous heritage here in Orange. I would like to think at some stage down the track, I think it is an opportunity for one of those pods to be used as a trial period for Indigenous art and artefacts, because I can't think of anywhere in Orange where we display that in any large or any type of scale. So I think that there may be an opportunity there to showcase on the Wiradjuri people some of their history or their artefacts or sales or whatever. So I think there may be an opportunity there. Because as I said, there is a thirst for people wanting to learn more about history, and there could be an opportunity there should an organisation like the local land council or something like that choose to pursue it. So thank you very much, and all those people that are involved in the Economic Development Committee meetings throughout the last 5 years. Certainly it was greatly appreciated. I think they were a group or a committee that was very progressive, and we achieved some excellent results. So thanks to the staff and people involved. We've had the motion moved by Mayor Kidd, seconded by Councillor Munro. With show of hands, all for. Any against? Declare the motion carried. Thanks, councillors. That concludes the Employment and Economic Development Policy Committee meeting, with the time now being 8:38 p.m. And I now call on Councillor Whitten to conduct the Infrastructure Policy Committee meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Mileto. I'm the Infrastructure Policy Committee at 8:38. We have no pecuniary interests, and we move on to item 2.1 minutes.
I'll move the recommendation.
Please be moved by the Mayor, seconded by Councillor Munro. Any discussion on the minutes? There being no discussion of the promotion, all those in favour? Against? Carried. Item 2.2 minutes of the extraordinary.
I'll move the recommendation again.
Been moved by the Mayor, seconded by Councillor Hanning. Any discussion on this item? There being none, I'll put the motion, all those in favour?
Aye.
Against? The motion is carried. Item 3, current work.
I'm going to move the recommendation, Mr. Chair.
Been moved by Councillor Nugent, by the secretary, it's been moved by the Mayor, Councillor Kidd, seconded by the Mayor, Councillor Kidd.
Can I just make one comment? Look, can I just say to the director, the CEO and the staff, these reports are fantastic. It's so simple to look down whether it's energy use, water usage, airport passengers. The photographs of major works happening on the intersections or roundabout, or road, and so forth. This information is so easy to comprehend by, like sort of community in general. And I would not accept that people don't know what's going on. If we report out like this, it's on our webpage and anyone can access it. I can tell you to say that they don't know what they would determine. So they're really good, simple reports. Yeah.
Councillor Moreira?
Thank you, Mr Chair. Just a question with regards to the intersection of Beasley Road and the Mitchell Highway there at Lucknow. I've been asked by a couple of residents out there, I chair the Lucknow committee, just a time frame when that may be finished, or how long we expect it to go for?
Thank you for the question. We're doing works on the other end, there's the Beasley Plant Road section.
Yeah.
We're planning to have all that completed for Christmas.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Sorry, I had the
Councillor Newton?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Chair. I just wanted to comment and agree with the Mayor for a change, that this is really a fantastic report. It is a really good summary of what's going on across such a broad range of council operations. But particularly, I just wanted to thank Mr Greenham and his team for the report on recycled materials and roads and pavements, as we discussed briefly at the previous meeting. So thank you for putting that in. And it is good to see that asphalt containing recycled materials has recently become commercially available within the region, and as an option to be considered for future asphalt projects. So that's very good. Thank you.
Any further questions?
Yes, Chairman. My question's about Turner Crescent. About what's actually happening down there.
Well, would you like to know? I might be able to answer that part. But what would you like to know? About what?
About Turner Crescent.
About the school, the road, okay. Mr Green and myself paid a visit down there. And, we met with Mrs Island. But I'll let the director give you some idea. I think we raised this at the last week. So there's the builders down there been chewing up the road a little bit, and the director and I went down that look and explained to the residents down there what council will be doing to fix that up, or have the developer fix it up. Not council, and what cost of ratepayers. There was a small bend there there's a bend that goes around that people are parking rather than bend. And I think Mr Green is going to, I'll let you answer that part, Mr Green.
Yes.
Is that what you're asking about, Councillor Duffy?
Sure.
Any particular, anything else?
No, mine is the traffic flow. That's right. It's the traffic flow there and the room for people to get around there.
Yeah, so
Because at the moment it's a dog wrestle.
there is currently room to get through, provided they're not parking right on the corner. The corner is widened out as well. And as already been mentioned, the concern of the ratepayers there at that time was that their rates wouldn't be used in fixing up the road where there's been damage by the building. So the building's been put on notice. And we've also spoken to the regulatory officers about parking close to that corner as well. There was put on notice about that, to control subcontractors. So I haven't heard anything further back from Mrs. Old.
Will we be policing that, Mr Green?
We are, it is.
Move the motion, people. One more question, Mr Mayor.
Oh, it's just,
Councillor Munro.
thank
I'll let
you.
I'll let
Thank you,
Thanks,
Mr.
Dan.
Chair. I was down there the other day and it was very hectic. I do understand the ratepayers' issues. It is a little bit onerous for them because the problem, and I don't think it's wholly and solely the builder that's in charge, but contractors have a look at the vans and the utes and the little trucks that were waiting to go in. They were outside contractors doing another job waiting to go into the site. When I was there at that particular time, it was over congested and I could not get through until a truck moved. But that was all, I can understand it's a building stage and sometimes we have to put up with things when things are getting built. I just hope there's a better outcome when parents are going in and dropping their children off and there is adequate egress and access for that.
I'm surprised it's come out alive because you're visiting them all there and you're telling them you're going to support them.
Yeah, I remember most people.
I'm not going to shoot you.
So, before I put the motion, I'd just like to thank Mr. Green for his support during my time in the chair of infrastructure and his team. Always answered the phone when I called, always got straight on to any issue if there was an issue to be dealt with. So, Ian, it's been a pleasure, mate, working with you, and maybe look forward to working with you again. It will depend on that. So.
Thank you very much, Steve. It's a pleasure to work with all of you in that part and we've seen people.
Certainly do.
To provide that service.
And I think the other thing we should mention, the Mayor and I were lucky enough to be the opening of the new offices at the depot. Great office, and had the pleasure of sharing a sausage sandwich with the team there and catch up with some old faces. A lot of new faces, a lot of new faces at the depot, and there's the odd recognisable one that hasn't been. Councillor Hammond.
Just very quickly, it'd have to be a pretty hard gig, your team, because, you know, we get people ring us, oh, there's a pothole, there's this and that. We ring you guys straight away and you know, it's usually sorted out. So I'd like to say thank you to you and all your staff too, because I reckon it's got the hardest gig.
Yeah. They had a really good chairman.
Yeah, you
All right.
Enough on the back.
I'll put the motion, all those in favour? Against?
Mr. Horizon,
Councillor Turner.
through you to Mr. Green. Some meetings ago, I raised a concern at the Waste Resource Recycling Centre regarding the shopping trolleys, and the shopping trolleys were moved the next morning, sure, but the rest of that area does not go with the rest of the centre. The rest of the centre is neat and tidy. First, on the left, as you go through the front gate, is an absolute disgrace. There is now shopping trolleys on, the tall grass, the blackberries are still there, the dead trees are still there, the window frames that have been there for years are still there. It'd only take a day with one of the excavators to level it and send it up to the Greenway Centre or whatever, and then mow it. But there's half a dozen dead trees amongst the live ones, there's blackberries. It doesn't go with the rest of the, as I call it, the tip. If we could get the front entrance tidied up, I did that to start with, I couldn't get it all out the second time, the tip was a lot easier.
You got a wrap, and then you got to wrap over the knuckles.
That's the hammer and feather trick.
I feel a bit embarrassed having the wings at the last meeting, but I know we've got a meeting.
No, we've got another meeting. Councillors, we do have another meeting that moves to the.
As a frequent visitor and a passerby, it does concern me. It shouldn't be like that.
I'll close the infrastructure meeting at, I think it's 8:48, and I'll invite Councillor Hammond. No, Councillor Nugent.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Whitten. I'd like to open the Environmental Sustainability Policy Committee meeting of 2nd November 2021, with the time being 8:48. No councillors declared interest, just checking. No one has any other interest to declare. That being the case, we'll move on to item 2.1.
I'll move the recommendation.
Moved by Councillor Higgs, seconded by Councillor Miletto. Are there any discussions or comments? It'll be a very short meeting, so I would like to as other chairs have done, acknowledge the work of that particular committee, acknowledge Councillor Kidd's contribution in recent times to that committee, and also contributions of Councillor McRae and Councillor Presbytera to that committee in the past. So I think the committee's achieved quite a lot. Prepared the legacy document, which we saw at the previous meeting and which was adopted by council at that meeting, and which summarised its achievements and also made some recommendations in terms of how committees might operate in the future. And I would like to acknowledge in particular the staff again. Mr. Waddell had a major input to that committee in its early days. Mr. Hodges took over from him, but in particular, having our sustainability officer, Mr. Hall, involved and just part of council overall has made enormous difference, I think, to the work of council in this area. So it's great to have Lindsay on board, and thank you to all the staff and all of the community members who contributed to that committee. If there be no other comments or discussion, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Aye. Raise your hands. Unanimous. Thank you. And that draws the Environmental Sustainability Policy Committee meeting to a close at 8:51. And I'll call on Councillor Duffy to conduct the finance policy.
Thank you, Councillor Nugent. And I will open the finance committee meeting at 8:51. And with 1.1, there's been no declarations of interest, and the apologies have already been accepted. We're moving on to 2.1, which is the quarterly budget review. And I know that the Director of Finance is on. We have a move and second it, and Councillor Richard.
I've just got a question.
I'm going to.
I have a question. What's collaborate?
I'm going to
collaborate. It's live.
I'm bowing to your request, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to ask the director to give us a brief rundown on his thoughts on what the actual report is about, because we're talking about a lot of money here. We don't want to go through in 60 seconds, do we?
No. What
is he about?
Yes. What does collaborate mean?
I can answer that, Mr. Chair, if you would allow me. That was
it means collaborate with Bob and Blaney, and who else want to collaborate with?
Community.
Even the never have.
And those pillars will be removed.
The Director of Finance.
Is it about?
Mr. Cook.
Hello. Thanks for that, Councillor Duffy. I think I can point you to page 6, which lists the material changes for September. The big contributors, we get a financial assistance grant that we have to recognise as operating income, and then we use it for both operating and capital projects. So when it hits capital projects, it impacts the operating result, does not impact the overall cost to council, but it's just one of those little intricacies. We've got some extra work around the gallery extension, around a toilet block and required electricity upgrades. So that hit the accounts. And we've also got some new positions around grants officer, a GIS coordinator and a communications coordinator. They're slated to be permanent positions going forward as well. So there's a lot of ins and outs, but they're the main drivers of the movements.
Thank you.
Very, very, very good financial lingo, in and outs. And look, now, just one comment I thought was interesting on the consolidated rates. Looking at the same time last year was 40.1% or something, and this year it's 20. It's half of last year. Just giving that 1 month levy to it, one the late pays and actually paying made a huge difference to paying rates. Huge difference, yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, our CEO would just like to comment.
Yeah, while we're on the subject of thanking people, can I just, councillors, commend the CFO and his team to you. On Sunday afternoon, they finished the audited accounts for the year. So well done, Jason and your team. Thanks very much. And we had the Audit and Risk Improvement Committee on Friday, and they were again complimentary. So thank you, Seth.
Can I just make one complaint on behalf of whatever the next incoming council? I've never been to a meeting that went for 4.5 hours and we didn't get a cup of coffee, a toilet break, and we finished at 2 and got no lunch.
But time flies.
CFO should think about that.
That's how tight.
We have no money in the budget for those things.
Not even the Vegemite sandwich.
You back to winner cup?
No, next
There's a recommendation.
agenda item.
Seconded. No further discussion. All those in favour, raise your hand. It's unanimous. Again, I just want to thank Mr. Cook and his staff for their efforts during the year. I started off poor and I'm still poor, so that means we've done a good job. So thank you, Jason, for your efforts and your staff. And I now call on Councillor Munro for Community Services.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Service Policy Committee meeting. I'd like to open the Service Policy Committee meeting 2nd November, being 8:55. Does any understand that no councillor has any community or non-community interest in this meeting? Thank you. Items 2.1, minutes of the NAIDOC week committee.
Yeah, happy to move those.
Thank you.
Chair.
I'll second that.
Thank you very much, councillors. Is there any discussion on the item?
Oh, look, I'd just like to acknowledge, as the Mayor did at the start, that we're at the start of NAIDOC week celebrations here locally in Orange. We had the opening event, which would normally have been the huge street parade and a big event down at Robertson Park, but it had to be scaled down because of the uncertainties around COVID, and was basically some speeches and morning tea in the council chambers yesterday morning, and the Mayor spoke at that, as did some of the local Aboriginal elders. And Gerald Power as the chair of the committee. I would commend to you the display, the installation at the museum for NAIDOC week, which will be there through until April next year. It's out in the foyer or in the sort of visitor centre area, and there's display on the board, as well as some display of art and craft, as well as photos on the wall. It's a small display, but very powerful, very well put together, and well worth a view. And also want to commend the staff and the NAIDOC Week Committee for organising the map, the flags painted on the museum roof, the Aboriginal flag and the Torres Strait Islander flag, and the theme of of NAIDOC Week this year, which is Heal Country. And given that I think it's worth mentioning, given that we're celebrating 75 years as a city, 175 years as a village, I think we should also acknowledge that we're celebrating 50,000 years or more of continuous occupation and living and caring for the land here in Orange by our First Nations people. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'll put the motion. Everybody unanimous? Thank you very much. 2.2 minutes of the NAIDOC committee meeting on 7th of October.
Happy to move those.
Second. Thank you. Second. Any discussion on this one? No discussion, put the motion.
Aye.
Unanimous, thank you very much. Okay, item 2.3 minutes. Orange, thank you very much.
Just if I may, I'll put the letter to Minister, the Health Minister, expressing concern of staffing situation at the hospital, particularly in radiotherapy and so forth. Specialists being there at the moment in the Western District. Secondly, the King and the Premier saying, putting their hand up there for that thing, the Premier's come out and talked about RDA and vaccine research and production. So those letters have gone in, and hopefully next week, I may be.
Very, very good.
Just one confirmation, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, just a question, Mr. Chair, on page 121.
Yeah.
The Community Safety and Crime Prevention Committee.
I'll go around as well.
Oh, sorry.
Right then, okay, we'll put the motion.
Yep.
All in favour?
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Community safety.
Okay,
Yeah, I'll
item
move that,
3.1.
Move.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Any discussion here? Councillor Turner?
Regarding the Parental Responsibility Act, it's been going for as long as I can remember in Orange, and always touted as being very, very successful. And in my time, the only other council area that had the same committee was up at Gosford, that folded. Yet I know here in the report, the police report, the extension has provided them with the opportunities to keep young people safe, build relationships with parents and young people. The local police seem to be very supportive of it. Does anyone know whether the local police have tried to, through their union or whatever it might be, to get other area commands to take on the Parental Responsibility Act? It seems so successful here, yet.
Well, perhaps, look, just quickly, if I can answer that, no, is the answer no. And it's not so much, it's quite interesting, the police have always been supported, basically right across from the top to the bottom right. It's when you get into other government departments who were the not sort of didn't support it. And I won't mention what departments they are, but I know here, Councillor Taylor himself, we have to go around every single school in Orange, and we've got it's going fairly well. And then I remember the last thing we had to go to was an NGO waiting to see the NGO, and the person told us that they thought this was an infringement on people's liberties, a range of things. And we got it here, and it's been hugely successful. And someone said it's one of those things that you can't put statistics beside. The fantastic thing besides if you don't have to use it. It's a tool that can be supported with a young girl in front of the law until late at night, and uncomfortable by a parent or the garden or whatever, and say, look, what are you doing here? You shouldn't be here. And it's worked hugely successful. The police support it totally, but I would say the government as a whole, government department, don't take it because they're on rough limits. Yeah, so we've still got it, and it's operated all that time. The biggest pain in the butt, I suppose, is the amount of bookwork the staff have to go through. 4 years. Yeah, it is an unbelievable amount of paperwork that was to go through to get it again. And we have not had a solitary complaint from the police department or anyone in Orange against the program. And it's just, as the police will say, it's just one of many tools that they have for protecting them.
And I might add, sorry, Catherine. I know in my time on this council and Councillor Hamlin's time, that we've had to basically fight people every year or every time the time runs out. Yourself and Councillor Taylor work tirelessly to get it and to keep it. So it would be good to through you, Mr. Chairman, back to the CEO, is that to try and educate the new council how important it is to the community. Because the reason they don't know about it, as you said, Mr. Mayor, because it's working. Once it's not working, then they'll know about it. But they won't be able to get it back. So, yeah.
Yeah, as chair of the crime committee, the staff have been indicated it's getting harder and harder to get that renewal from the Attorney General's office, which, you know, I find a bit bizarre when it's actually working. It doesn't matter if we're the only council, that's got nothing to do with it. If it's working in our local command, you know, it should be not touched. Yeah, and as Mr. Mayor, as you pointed out, the police have another avenue to take these young children home and get them home at all hours of the night. And the hardest bit is the commander said was making sure the new police know that it's there as an option for them to use. I'll finish on that now. I'm just going to make another comment on something else. I just want to,
Yeah, sorry. Just with regards to this item, personally, I'd like to thank you, Councillor, for the way that you conducted this committee. I'd also like to think that the Orange City Council could write to the Orange Police Station, in particular, Inspector Peter Atkins himself, because the contribution and the sacrifices he would make at every meeting to provide the committee with up-to-date information, and he's always been, as the Orange Police Station have, great supporters of council and work to achieving the goals and better outcome for Orange. So I think that I'd like to see us acknowledge him in particular and the Orange Police Station further out assisting council.
I'll make sure.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, sorry, I just want to, while we're doing it, the liquor report as well, they've always been up front, and Bill Kelly was chair of that for a hell of a long time, and now it's the gentleman from the Metropolitan Hotel. I'd like to thank them because they were telling us how hard it's been with the COVID, getting people to check in, and some of the kickback that they've had from different patrons of not wanting to check in or not wanting to do this. So I suppose all our shops, everything, in the whole CBD and the wineries and whatever else, they've done a marvellous job with this COVID of check-in and making sure people do check in, and now they're double vaxxed. And there's just so much rigmarole now that we have to go through, and it's the norm now. So just a big shout out to all that.
Thank you, councillors. I really appreciate those comments. It's really importantly made, so thank you. You'll put the motion.
Aye.
Unanimous, thank you.
So
go on.
There you go.
You want to jump this up?
Before you finish.
Just to finish off, I'd like to hand it back to the Mayor Reg Kidd, and thank all involved for their efforts during this term of council.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, can I just one quick point?
Finish it, in 9:06?
I didn't get a chance to just say thank you to my sport committee because I didn't have one. I just want to, it's been a pretty hard committee with some of the issues we've had going, and I'd like to thank all the community members. It's probably one of the larger committees who have been rock solid and supporting everything that we've done. And, they know what the bigger picture is out at that site out there, and they're fully behind it 100%. And myself and you, we were out there with Mr. Farrow, that athletics track, my goodness gracious, if you want to have a good look at what state-of-the-art facility we are going to get out there, have a really good look, because it is absolutely mind-boggling what is going out there. We are going to be number one west of the mountains, without a doubt. We'll be bigger than Dubbo. We'll be better than Dubbo. We'll learn where they've gone wrong, and we make sure we don't go wrong as well. But I'd like to thank all my staff, Scott Warner, Ben Keegan, amazing as usual, and let's see what happens next. Thank you.
Well done, Councillor Amy, on that.
Look, the number item 4, notice of motion on for our action group, Councillor Munro.
Happy to second.
Moved by Councillor Munro, seconded by Councillor Newton.
I've got a couple of questions for Mr. Munro before he starts.
We've got a second.
Councillor
Newton, second.
Can I ask on point 2 and point 4, what are the actual costs to the state government in running a train for both those items there, point 4? Because I've been led to believe we're better off putting someone in a taxi and driving them, sitting, put them on the train if they're going to bring that line. What are the actual costs to that, to the state government, to what's the pay?
Look, can I just say, look, I'll support the motion. I know the intent of the motion. I think the fine detail of how it's done and what it costs, what that is quite subjective. But I think that, as a council, we should support anything that improves connectivity, infrastructure, connectivity to Sydney, whether it be rail, road, or air. I support the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree. It's, no matter what the cost is to government, that's what the ratepayers or the taxpayers of Australia sort of demand service.
Okay, I'll put the motion
No,
on.
no, 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 no. Oh, right, okay, yeah, I'll let you go this time.
All in favour? Aye, yes.
Is it unanimous?
Actually, was it a quorum?
Yes.
Yes.
No, we haven't.
Two.
We haven't.
I can.
We're gonna do it again, Mr. Mayor.
Five, no,
I've
five.
only got six.
No, 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 no,
Six. You got
six.
1, 2, 3.
We've got one six. Yeah, we've got one six.
Yeah, the other two.
Doesn't matter.
And two out, yeah, we still got a quorum.
Here it comes. Here it comes.
A quorum is 50% plus one.
Just put your hand up, please.
No, we will.
That's it.
50% plus one, we had that.
I'm like 10 plus half.
The chef has asked me to speak it up.
Yeah.
5.1 is the Donkey Waste Service.
Yeah, happy to move the recommendation, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Nugent.
Second.
Second,
Can I-
Councillor
yeah.
Munro.
From reading this, Mr. Mayor, I feel as though we're not going to have the one in February, is that correct?
Mr. Grant, would you vote for please?
We budgeted for it.
Yeah, definitely have one better.
Wrong, you must have read it.
They're wrong.
But as I said, I've been busy filling out nomination forms.
Did everyone else, when they read it, everyone came up February?
That's, I just read it briefly.
Came up and they had one in February.
And the ratepayers
The only
only
one didn't see.
Ratepayers have paid for one. Please.
Yeah, I know, good, isn't it? We're going to have one.
Yeah,
Yeah, so.
just making sure.
All in favour? Thank you very much. Good report, Tim. Next. It's the local government New South Wales annual conference, call for motions.
Happy to move.
I'm happy to second, because one of the motions that we should have is the new planning.
I'll do it second.
He moved it, I'll second.
Councillor Duffy, seconder, Councillor Nugent moved.
Thank you.
Can I suggest any motions that you have? Please get them into CEO. What's it?
Not until
One
January.
of them, Mr. Mayor, which I spoke about the last meeting, was about the planning law changes. And I know a lot of other councils in the Central West of the region of New South Wales are very concerned about the state government trying to fleece a little bit of money on us. So let our director come up with a resolution to go to that.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I've sent 3 motions to the CEO this afternoon.
Can I come back to us? Can I come back to us for the next council meeting? That's over the ball.
Correct.
That's very much.
Yep, sure.
Yeah, look, I don't think anyone's objecting to the motions coming in, but it'd be good if we all get them saying that in the next council meeting. So, okay. All in favour?
I will circulate.
Thank you. 5.3, there's a recommendation.
Seconder, please.
Your second council now.
Madam Seconder.
What number you moving?
5.3. All in favour?
Unanimous.
Thank you very much. Now, 5.4 is a request for financial assistance.
Happy to move the recommendations.
Happy to second it.
Councillor Newman, second, Councillor Mayor.
Just a question, Mr. Mayor. We need to put this out in public exhibition because it's not a not-for-profit. The actual events, book an Orange event is scheduled for the 21st of November, so it'll be out on that public exhibition when the event actually happens. So will the event go ahead or will they postpone it or like
Mr. Chair, we'll sort something.
we'll sort something out?
Can I
All right.
suggest, I to make a decision on, I think. The executive decision.
Okay.
Yeah.
So everyone's happy with that?
Yeah.
Happy with that. All right, all in favour? Thank you. 5.5 is delegation to CEO. Where's the recommendation?
Just a clarification, Mr. Mayor, I do believe that even though for the past 4th of December, I think the mayor resides in the chair until his position is taken. Is that correct?
That's correct. In this case of Orange, that's correct.
Yeah, that's just for popular.
So you could-
I'm still there until they say in the next meeting.
Yeah.
No, probably.
Probably be me.
Don't forget it.
So we get a second.
I moved it, didn't I?
We have a second.
All in favour?
Councillor Hamlin seconded that.
Thank you. 5.6 is development of a safe and secure water program for Don Lines and Central Haven.
Happy to do that, Mr.
It's a
Mayor.
really good report, too, by the way.
Second,
Move, councillor,
Yes.
second, councillor. Moore.
If I could just speak to that, Mr. Mayor, I had the opportunity a couple of days ago to go and look at the presentation which was provided by council. And that there was an excellent, gave me a better understanding about what's in plan for the future. So I'd just like to thank the staff, Mr. Waddell and your staff for putting it together. I thought it was an excellent presentation. And certainly there's been a lot of discussion about people's concerns regarding water security. And I think that presentation, which I saw, and Councillor, you were there also, certainly alleviated some of the concerns that I had. So I think that once that's made public and it progresses, I think people may be a little bit more at ease as to the direction that the region are going with regards to water security. So thank you for putting it together.
Look, if I can just say, look, exactly what you're saying, Councillor Miller. And two of our directors and Wayne Beattie and all that stuff in there is no doubt in the world that since water security and that we really do leave the field in more comfortable use and in the programs that we're looking going down the track looking at the future 10, 20, 30, 40 years. We're not just looking at water filtered outside, we're talking about conservation of water by pipelines, the stormwater harvesting. We're looking at in the future of grey water and black water use and a whole range of things around that, which a lot of other councils are coming on board following. Stormwater harvesting is the best example. First problem, stormwater harvesting in Australia, people put it down. Most of them are right into it now, being told to be into it. When we look at our water management plan, I put that up to council back 2009, I think 2007, that we should have a water management plan and an emergency water management plan for water. 3 years later, come from Washington State, the council actually had, because Davo and Baptist were big ones in trouble way back then. But because we're not on the river, we're not so sure figure out. But I think it is important thinking about development into the future and where we stand in what we're actually doing. But I think we're really comforting if you refer back, we're out of the crowd now, but I still find you should have a look at that consumptive use of the water, which is really interesting. And those restrictions are lifted, but they're still, we're still operating well below the tightest level of consumptive type of water usage per day per week, which means there's been this incredible cultural change in the community. The community still living comfortably, having their gardening, doing all sorts of things, and it just shows, and that's a pretty important thing to move down that path. And I think that's been a good effort. A lot of that effort's been education, engagement with the community. And this report, I think, just shows part of what is happening in our region is the cooperation between our neighbouring councils and all the councils within the JOC, which is very, very important. And that's looking at the Macquarie River, that's looking at the Lachlan River, that's looking at all the places in between the dam, and eventually seeing all that end up with this would save an incredible amount of water through the evaporative loss and be able to transport water from areas of need, from areas that have got at surface or command water back and forth. I remember getting condemned, getting the photo taken last year, the year before, the mayor of Marwong. We built that tank out on Marwong Road, only for emergencies. If our neighbours, people who shop in Orange, got in big trouble with potable water, at home, for kitchen and so forth. But it's if something happened, there was contamination, they will supply water. said. And I think that's what good neighbours, that's what the regional community is all about. And we've done that. And I'm quite sure if it needs to come back the other way for whatever reason, we have a contamination problem that way. So I think this is important.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I concur in that. You know, there's a lot of people out there saying, oh, the dam's full, council's not thinking about water, or, you know, it's not going to happen. That's not true. We're always planning. And as you said, we've been working with our neighbours for a number of years to get this pipeline up and going, this pipeline system up and going. So I think, the people who are negative towards us thinking we're not thinking about water should have a look at some of these reports that are on the website or at council.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor, my only comment is here, and I agree with everything that's been said. We've been very fortunate in Orange to have extremely capable people like Chris Devitt. Going back a fair way, Chris did a hell of a lot of work with other staff in regards to water management, all that sort of stuff, and really started, that's, as far as I'm concerned, that's where we started. And when we got the Macquarie pipeline, we proved it could be done, we proved it could work. And then the further investment was state government and federal government in regards to $35 million pipeline we spoke about and other things. It's an investment in our community, in our region, by not only us, in our fantastic staff that really have implemented it, and then through former mayors and yourself and councillors lobbying government to get more of it happening based on success. I think it's very important, and it'll go on, because as far as I'm concerned, the staff we have here in Orange up to the task, and we'll go forward and do more great things. So good, thank you.
Thank you.
Just as a comment, Mr. Mayor, we also should remember that our council and Midwest Regional Council are in support of the Old Murray Dam project, which is a long-term thing. I think, remember, there's only one person in our room voted against it. But, you know, I can't see why, but I know Des Kennedy, Mayor of Midwest Regional, he's a massive big supporter as well.
Eventually. All in favour? Aye, against, thank you. 5.7 is a rural distributed road, stroke to local way roundabout.
Move.
And the mover,
Yeah, second.
Councillor Newton. All in favour?
Just for that road, you spoke about this, and then, great report that was raised by myself, and certainly we'll know that that's something that needs to be addressed up there, and this is certainly a start of that. And thank you, Mr. Brown, for the report.
Can I just ask a quick question, isn't it? Is the intersection of Clergate Road, when we're doing the upgrades, is that intersection of the NDR Clergate Road going to be looked at?
Yes, it's part of our, through the chair. Yeah. As part of our, sorry, as part of our development contributions plan that we're running in parallel with the housing strategy, we're looking at significant upgrades to a number of intersections. One of them is Clergate Road, the NDR, and at this stage, a concept program that there.
Yeah, good. Because early in the morning, the traffic's flying down there, and there's people coming out. There's a lot of that, you know, it's an industrial land now, so there's been a couple of near misses that I've seen coming back from there early in the morning. So that's great.
And just another question to you, to the director. As we all know, council knocked back that development there because of that reason in that corner, and because it couldn't do ingress us the distributor. Is that something that could possibly look back now? With where that business is there, way, that they have to go around back in that way. Is there any chance in the future that they will have ingress off the distributor at these lines? Yeah. That's a question on that.
Potentially, yeah. It would require a modification to the current consent and operation. So,
that fix anything?
It would still probably be referred through to Transport for New South Wales. I don't think it would fix anything at the moment of financial paragraph. So I wouldn't necessarily support it in current conditions.
Okay, thank you.
All in favour? Against? 5.9 is central table meetings. Yeah, 5.8 is
I better move the recommendation.
moved councillor Newton, second councillor Leonard, all in favour? Thank you. Now, so 5.9, I will move.
Yeah, I'll second, Mr. Chair.
Second councillor Leonard.
Councillors, you have an attachment, Mr Mayor.
Yes,
Made items.
items, all about it.
If I can continue,
It's an attachment of items 10. This one here, which has a concept design for a.
we've got 5.10.
This is,
No, it's not 5.9.
5.9, sorry.
This is central table and legal system or by speed front.
I think
All in favour?
Against?
Yeah.
5.10.
5.10.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'm happy to move the recommendation, but I think the levy should be Orange District Cricket Association, the Orange Duty Cricket Association should be $10 for the season. And let the next council work out what they can, because we've had a bit of a mix-up during the years with regards to COVID and not being able to use the 7 and all those kinds of things there.
So obviously, Mr Chair, I was just going to say one thing. The resolution, the recommendation says that, if there were no submissions, then,
There were submissions.
we actually had 2 submissions.
Yes.
And we therefore can expect more. So with your permission, it's probably wise to withdraw this one.
I'll move to withdraw. I'll second that.
No.
Second it down there.
The reason why, because as part of this, there was submissions and they said there was no submissions, correct?
Correct.
If there was no submissions. And I understand there is a meeting with cricket on Thursday, junior cricket, about this. So why would we make a decision now when they're meeting?
Okay, we can go down that pathway if we wish.
So
But I want to say this, Mr Chairman and Mr Mayor, is that the council doesn't have any power to go back and levy backwards because it's a new fee. Now, maybe the Director of Finance can go and pay and back whoever's right, whoever's wrong. And I'm led to believe the association's already paid money already towards the council.
That's
I'm not 100% sure, but I do have a concern about pecuniary interests and interests about.
Okay, can I suggest to you then, because we've got an amendment there, this is going to be withdrawn, we're going to look at the other submissions and we've got, when it comes back to council, they've got the right to debate those things and what you see as possible problems. All in favour?
That's just the number one, isn't it? So number 2 is the Anson Street stuff.
Correct.
No.
Sorry, we're just talking
First
about.
one is a Carl Snow.
Yeah, so we've drawn that, is that correct?
This is a Carl Snow.
So the amendment is to withdraw part 1.
Yeah, sorry. Part 2 is Anson Street LC House Care.
I'll move that, Mr. Chairman.
Move, councillor, second, councillor Munro. All in favour? Thank you very much. 5.11 is waiving the fees.
I'll move it, Mr. Mayor.
Have a second, Mr Mayor.
Move, councillor Henry, second, councillor Newton. All in favour?
Unanimous.
Can I just say, this is a very important one. I'll have to speak with some people right past. There's a lot of things happening on the outside at the moment, but some people suggest that council really haven't done much to help Warwick over the years, but I think you have a look at the amount of land that they've got, the amount of interest-free loans that they've got. People work without payment that's been done. I think there needs to be assistance in grant funding. Yes, so I think that we may have a meeting with Warwick State. All in favour? Aye, yes.
General funding.
5.12
Grant funding report.
5.12 general funding report as requested. I requested that,
Correct.
Look, can I just say on that, why I asked for that, it is very, very important to have a really good touch look at them. and have a look at over the term of this council, the amount of funding that we've attracted from both state government, and this is not legal government, we've attracted a lot of money, and from the feds. And it's very, very important coming from any council to remember one thing. Irrespective of politics, if you're a local government, to get the green funding. Certainly won't get it if we want to be a bird in the saddle. And we've been very, very successful. And I think the most successful one, a lot of people take credit, but it wasn't what has been before, was the sports precinct. Now, I know the former Premier made that comment at an election sort of Port Barron in Robson Park, but post that, the government didn't receive grants, but by a lot of lobbying from this council staff, we got the 25 million bucks, which this wouldn't happen without. Guaranteed, we would not be talking about sports precinct. That applies to a lot of other bits and pieces too, like the gallery extension, $4 million, $10 million to the conservatory, the cricket centre of excellence, and it goes on and on. And that's why I've asked for the report, because sometimes it's very, very easy to global law. Now, also, some things would go for we have got too, but if you have a look at proportion, what we applied for and what we got versus not getting, it's done extremely well, and that's a credit to all the councillors and all the council staff.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I do agree with that, and very much so, but it works on both sides of the coin. When we go back a little bit, when we had a Labor federal government, we did very well out of them too.
I think that's what I said.
Yes, I know. Absolutely. I think
I'm only talking about this council.
Yeah, I think we've done extremely well, and again, it goes back to the depth of our staff and our commitment as councillors to putting in the guards commitment. A lot of it is staff, because we lean on the staff pretty hard. So it's all staff. Yeah. So anyway, look, I agree wholeheartedly. But any government that's worth their salt will put into the community, and that's what they're there for, and they've been doing it. And I suppose we've got to commend them for that, because it's not a held seat, is more of a reason for them to put money as Mayor Wishart.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just following on from the comments you made with regards to grant funding in this excellent report, I was advised yesterday that Darrington District Football Association, and I declare an interest here, that I'm the president of that organisation, received notification from Liquor and Gambling that the Darrington District Football Association were successful in receiving a grant of $108,000 to go towards training, lighting at their Jack Rabbits. That's an excellent outcome based on we've been trying grant applications for a while now. We've been successful with some minor ones, but this is apart from the stronger communities which the state government gave us 2 or 3 years ago through Mr. Farrell. This is the second biggest contribution we've had. So
that's great. So many times we've put in for that light funding for the soccer field, and they're finally able to.
That's the second one we've got. We've got 50,000 several months ago for the I think it was round 6, the stronger communities, country communities, and so that's that'll go a long way to improving the lighting out there and some of the sort of things we want to do.
Maybe we should ask a new Premier up, Mr. Mayor. Last time, ask the new Premier up to visit. Last time, the Premier came up with 25 million.
Actually, hopefully next week. Oh, 513 is late, reallocation funding to planning and fencing.
I'm happy to move that way, Mr. Mayor. I always thought that we're going to get a picket fence anyway.
Second, Councillor Munro, seconded that.
Mr. Mayor, can I just ask a couple of questions? So, obviously the $100,000 to Spring Hill was turned down by the, is that what I'm reading here? Yeah, it's turned down by the committee. How much does it cost to put a picket fence up if we've purchased picket fence?
Last is what he can arrange to close.
We've already bought, I understand we've already got the picket fences, that the picket fences are on order or ordered or E or what's
That's correct. It's been ordered.
And how much is that worth? How much is the picket fence worth?
Well, the whole works was, I think, over 100. It's about 104 altogether.
That's with the works out at Spring Hill. How much is it going to cost to put the picket fences in as well?
So we've had it checked out, so we can amend, so there's wire pick, so there's the wire frame.
Yep.
So sorry, there's the metal frame and the wire meshing.
Yep.
So we remove the wire meshing, we have to do some rejig to the top rail, and then we secure the pickets to it. So it's, I've spoken to the contractor, they reviewed it. They can do it for the same.
Why did the Spring Hill, why did they not want it?
I have no idea.
Well, Councillor Loretto and I sit on the Spring Hill community, so.
Well, I just want to know why have they not back $100,000 with a picket fence?
What happened?
I'm glad Rylene's getting it, don't worry, but I just wonder, you don't get those, you know, the villages are always saying
That's
they miss out, and they've said no to make that ground I'm just wondering why, that's all.
I would prefer not to comment on it because it's an operational matter.
Okay. Maybe we could get some sort of email sent out, I don't know, I just want to know why.
Yeah, I feel the same way, because, you know, resources for those villages are often, you know, sought after, and here's a.
I just thought there might be, there's some money left up, like if it wasn't going to cost that much money to do Ryelene, there's some money left over, maybe there other, to finish off Jack Govan lighting, so, you know, maybe that money could have been funneled into there to say tick, finished. But
My understanding with the lighting at Brabham that there was a certain amount of money. I think they were about 56,000 short or something. There was 9 LED lights or something to go in there, and that was in the council budget to finish those lights up. Is that my understanding, or am I reading it wrong?
My understanding, councillor, is there's no budget item for the lights in this year's budget.
Yeah, I think you're correct. I think we listed as what we need to do specification.
Can I suggest on slate item 5.13, I'll meet with the CEO and we'll come back to the next council meeting about why the reallocation.
Can you,
is that okay?
can you also check when it was taken out of the budget?
I think it
So I remember
you'll have to leave
in
the
the
No, I think
There was
it's
never-
go back and say, leave it within my discretion, please, that I've discussed it with the CEO and we'll have a report for you.
So Mr Chair, what's important tonight is.
I just need a second. I'm sorry. All in favour?
So is council voting to reallocate? Sorry, just something like that.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, they just did.
I would like to move a motion that the reallocation be deferred until the report comes back to council as to the reasons why.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's
Through
fine.
Mr Chair, I'm going to ask Mr Moore to comment on low on fuel. Council is going to caretaker mode, right? Is that relevant, Mr Moore?
It is for the purpose of reallocating the budget for one of.
No, hold on. Can I just say, no, the money's been allocated. You bought the fence.
Yeah.
Money's been
Where the frigging fence goes, seriously, you can make that. That's not a monetary decision.
The line item in the budget, Mr Mayor, was specifically for Springfield.
That's our problem.
So that's our problem.
So we need this active council.
Yeah,
to
that's
make the line item
reallocation.
But it could be made by the new council.
It could easily be made in February by the new council, where we just put the bits and pieces.
I think you can put that out to them because they're paying people in and put the fence up all the time.
So why don't we just defer it as Councillor said?
It's a matter for you what to do.
Yeah, look, okay, in my motion, there's also the further fence being put up until the new council decides where. Councillor
I second that.
Is that okay?
It's the second, yeah.
They're not going to put the fence up as quickly or in plain.
No, there's a perfectly serviceable fence there
Yeah,
already now.
yeah.
The works at Wade Park were conducted during cricket season. And they were done on that Friday. And it's no cricket to be played on. So that's exactly what we did for Wade Park. We did the exact same thing at Wade Park. So we did it through the season. So I'm pretty happy.
Well, okay, that's part of my motion. I'm saying that we dealt with the complaints until you get the report back, because there's a lot of questions being asked by councillors here, and I'm saying it's, doesn't go ahead right now until we report back to the council. All in favour? Against? Thank you. Mr. CEO, now that the meeting is closed, I'm sure there's something.
Well, I think you need to ask some questions to them.
The chief executive officer will advise the council if any written submissions have been received relating to any item advertised for consideration by a closed meeting on the city council.
Well, Mr. Mayor, in fact, I have had a written submission regarding item 6.1, where, and Mr. Gerald Hare, of the Secretary of the Orange Community Broadcasters Group, has addressed to me and noted that all information requested from council has now been provided, and noting the items to be considered in confidential, closed. And they also note that in accordance with the Local Government Act, Section 10A4, they note the following applies to council, community council, and our members and public make representations to or at a meeting or in other meetings closed to the public as to whether that other meeting should close. Now, the group wishes to state that we believe there is no valid reason for the matter to be held confidential. What could this is the Orange Community Broadcasters Union, nor is our application considered of commercial in confidence. Therefore, we have an objection to the item being discussed and decided in open council, and we ask council to remove the item from confidential. So they have no objection to the material they provided being brought into open, and they argue therefore that council should move it into open council. Now, council, I point out to you that it is your decision.
I'm happy to move that we consider an open.
If it's open, if they want it open, it's public record.
I can't see anything in there that's.
Is there anything that's onerous, Mr. Chairman?
It's your decision.
Hold one at a time here.
I think I raised this question last time with you during council. And I think you provided a response that there was information in there which was commercial in confidence.
Yeah.
Has that changed?
The group is saying they don't consider it as such, and they're happy to be in it.
I'm interested in your expert opinion on whether.
My opinion is that the group does not object to that material.
I move the open council.
I've already moved it.
We have a move of council.
Therefore, that's acceptable. We're not breaking it.
And we have a second, councillor Munro.
Now I want to ask a question. The question is, I asked for the report to come back, how much was the value of the actual property they're operating out? And it's not in the report. How much we give them? We charge them $1 a nominal rent, but what's it actually worth in the real world?
So
We're just going
Sorry, councillor Duffy, that's irrelevant to the actual motion you've got up for you. All in favour? Against? Now, your question is what?
No, you made a decision.
No.
I'm happy with it. Okay.
Right, okay, so it'll be, so
now consider that matter.
we'll consider that matter now, and then we'll go into the vote. Okay, so that's
6.1.
6.1 there.
Happy to move the recommendations.
It lapses for the one of the seconder.
We have a second.
Yeah, you got a second for discussion.
Councillor Munro, second.
Yep.
Can I ask a question then of you, Mr. South? Is there any reason why we shouldn't be supporting the grant application? On what grounds would that be?
My grounds. Well, I think we need to read the report, which I don't have in front of me. And the recommendation of that report is that donation could have to be made. So the staff recommendations, in fact, that donation is made advice. There's no objection from staff going
Look, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think, you know, in the scheme of things, it is a good community service, and I think this small amount of money, if that's going to help do something, it does actually go back into the community discussion held in this business, or what the service it provides actually provides a service for our community. So as far as I'm concerned, it's an add-on. It's something that they've asked for to be able to help them broadcast to our community, because it's not a wide community thing. It's just Orange pretty much in the surrounds. So the people who listen to this are our ratepayers.
I just got a question, Mr. Mayor.
Yes. Thank you.
Councillor Newton.
What due diligence do we do on the donation? Because they're requesting it specifically a piece of hardware, right?
What is it?
So, do we give a receipt so that that's what the money is spent on? Because we're dealing with ratepayers' funds, we need to understand that they're requesting it for a specific item.
We would set a quittal of donation.
Yep, thank you.
Look, I'm happy to support it, Mr. Mayor. It complies with all of the requirements. We give out these donations to community organisations across Orange all the time. The staff have recommended it. I think one of the issues that was raised at the last meeting was about whether it was a not-for-profit or not. That demonstrated that they are a not-for-profit. It's $2,500. It's a great, as Councillor Munro said, it's a great community service that they provide. Pretty much most of the people there are work as volunteers, operating volunteers. I can't see any reason not to give the donation, and I think we should.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, I go back to my question that I asked originally come in the original report. How much is the actual property that they lease it for? And I think we were told it's around about nominal rent, about $1. So what is that actually worth in real terms, in real everyday real estate life? And I know that Councillor Munro is a real estate agent these days. We talk about development and these type of things. But my question is what's it worth per week or for a year or whatever the case may be? So we're talking $50,000, we're talking $100,000. I mean, we're not a public development institution.
What is the relevance of this question?
I think it's a question, and I think generally thinking about the space that community broadcasters occupy, if I was thinking that, say, it's being an office outfit, I mean, I think we could be talking something in the order of $600 to $800 a week. It's not a very good quality building.
It's not a great space.
No.
That's only $600 a week.
I'm looking at that. I'm looking at anyone else in the room.
That's a guess.
You want to.
Raise the roll, my veterans.
That's a guess.
I definitely.
Yeah. So when we look at our commercial leasing arrangements, it would probably be
less than 500.
I think, Mr. Mayor, just a comment if I could.
No.
Okay, no, it's not a question. I was just going to make a comment that.
No.
Right.
Any other speakers for again?
If we're going to get a receipt for what this money's for, don't have a problem with it. If it's for hardware, technical stuff, I think that's what it's for. Is it's transmitted, isn't it?
I think it's an application.
Who's he watching?
Yeah, it's a policy.
Yeah. Look, no, I support it. I want to guarantee that it's a quick back to council. That becomes a community asset. And if there's any changes after the court case that's ongoing, that has remained as a community asset for community radio knowledge.
We'll add that.
Can I ask a question?
Second that, Mr. Lee.
Is the what they're asking money for, is it necessary? Do we know if it's necessary? Do we have an expert opinion that's necessary? That's not a criteria.
That's not a criteria.
Councillor, can you just, I was talking to the mayor. He's had more warnings than Will Robertson.
Going to answer that question. She's very highly experienced in radio and the gear.
Yeah, as part of the application process, it is the equipment for broadcasting, so it's a necessary piece of equipment to support broadcasting.
I'll move that we put it, Mr. Mayor.
Good.
Second.
All in favour?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. We now. Now, well,
So that's good then, when we start this bit, that we are in place.
can I, well, I just a question in relation to that. When is the court case in relation to the community radio?
Is there a court case?
Yes.
Is there a court case? Is that of interest to us though?
Yes.
We're in
open. Well, you're leasing a building to them.
But
And buy equipment.
we may prejudice the case if we start talking about.
No, I just want to know when it is, that's all I ask. That's a reasonable question, isn't it?
Well, no one here can answer.
Well, I was about to ask a reasonable question, so
I'm not the first person to ask a stupid question in the last 4 years, I can guarantee you, looking around here.
Mr. Mayor, could you please read?
It's on the table, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, reading the rest of the reasons going.
In accordance with the Local Government Act 1993 and the Local Government General Regulations 2005, in the opinion of the Chief Executive Officer, the following business of the college refers to in section 10A of the Act, it should be dealt with in a confidential session of the council, meeting closed to the rest of the public. 6.2 is lease of the clubhouse at Mould Park.
Move it.
This item is classified confidential under the provisions of section 10A of the Local Government Act 1993, which permits the meeting to be closed for public business related to C, information that will be disclosed and confer commercial advantage on the person within the council's conducting or proposes to conduct business. 6.3 is the lease of Orange Restaurant Cafe. The item is classified confidential under the provisions of section 10A2 of the Local Government Act 1993, which permits the meeting to be closed for public for business relating to C, information that will be disclosed and confer a commercial advantage on a person within the council is conducting or proposes to conduct business. 6.4, acquisition lot 193 DP 7568999 Station Road, Southern Fleet Road. This item is classified confidential under the provisions of section 10A2 of the Local Government Act 1993, which permits the meeting to be closed for public for business relating to C, information that would disclose confer a commercial advantage on a person within the council is conducting or proposes to conduct business. 6.5 is the tender construction of the Southern Fleet Road, Stage 4 and Chirley Collector Road, Stage 5. The item is classified confidential under the provisions of section 10A2 of the Local Government Act 1993, which permits the meeting to be closed to the public for business related to C, information that will disclose and confer a commercial advantage on a person within the council conducting or proposed business. 6.6 is the proposed sale of 94 Victory Street, lots 12 and 13 BP 1248 and lot 4, section 1 BP 666, I should say 2. This item is classified confidential under the provisions of section 10A2 of the Local Government Act 1993, which permits the meeting to be closed to the public for business relating to C, information that will be disclosed and confer a commercial advantage on a person within the council's conducting or proposed business. 6.7 is submission of redactions November 2021. The item is classified confidential under the provisions of section 10A2 of the Local Government Act 1993, which permits the meeting to be closed to the public for business relating to E, information that will be disclosed and accreditation law. Now, while we're waiting to go and close, by law, it's a statutory requirement